Welcome to Acera's pre-retirement webinar. In this webinar, I'm going to tell you all the things that you might want to know about the 3 years leading up to retirement, or perhaps the 3 months leading up to retirement, or the 3 weeks leading up to retirement, because you're all getting ready to retire. That's the commonality here, but there may be different amounts of time between now and when you retire. But because you're preparing to retire, you probably have some questions. Questions like, what do I need to know about my retirement? What do I need to know about my Acera account? Or what do I need to do, if anything? Well, I'm going to answer all those questions for you today. And I have arranged the answers to your questions in the form of this checklist. So these are all the topics that we're going to cover today. First off, I'm going to help you understand a little bit about your Acera membership. And we'll talk about your contributions to the retirement system. I'll show you a retirement timeline and we'll talk about your tier. So we'll just get some basics out of the way. Then I'll help you estimate your upcoming retirement benefit. When you finally retire, you're going to collect a lifetime monthly pension. And so I'll help you get an estimate of that. And as part of that discussion, I'm going to talk about the retirement formula and how we calculate your retirement benefit. And that's going to help you probably do some final planning right before you retire. And as part of that discussion, we'll talk briefly about purchasing service credit. We'll talk at length about how vacation affects the salary component of the retirement formula. And I'll show you the benefit estimating tool that you can use to get a precision benefit estimate. In the second half of the presentation, we will talk about verifying your retirement eligibility. I will help you choose a retirement date if you haven't already chose one, or maybe I'll help you adjust your retirement date based on something that you learned during this part of the presentation. I'll talk about the retirement application process, like what do you actually need to do to retire? And as part of that discussion, I'll tell you about the 5 different retirement allowance options that you're going to need to choose from on your retirement application. We will also talk about other benefits that we offer, including medical, dental, and vision benefits. We'll talk briefly about understanding life events and signing up for Acera News. Okay, let's jump right in. Let me just double check that I'm recording here. Okay, great. Let's start at the beginning of the story. Who is Acera? So Acera, in one sense, is this acronym that stands for the Alameda County Employees Retirement Association. But Acera is made up of a lot of people. There's about 90 of us that work here. We're all government employees. We're county employees, just like you. Um, and what we do is we provide retirement, disability, and death benefits to our members. That's our entire job. And our members, that's you. You're also part of Acera. And you're part of Acera, you're a member of Acera because of the position that you work in and who you work for. So you currently work, or at some point in the past, you worked full time in a retirement eligible position for one of the 6 public employers in Alameda County that uses Acera to provide pension benefits to their employees. So you can see those pictured here. And you're an Acera member because you work for one of these public agencies in Alameda County in that retirement eligible position. And your Acera membership, as soon as you were hired into that full-time retirement eligible position, was automatic and also mandatory. Now, you may not work full-time anymore, but you're still in that retirement eligible position and you're still an Acera member, you're still earning credit toward retirement and paying into the system. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit about what happens if you work less than full-time a little bit later. Okay, as an Acera member, you contribute to Acera's fund. Okay, so with every paycheck, this is what you're seeing is a screenshot of a county pay stub. And if you look at the before tax deductions column on your pay stub, you'll see a line that says retirement. And there's some money that comes out of your check and goes into Acera's fund. So you do that with every paycheck. You pay into Acera's fund, and your employer also makes a contribution to Acera's fund on your behalf with every paycheck. And so we don't want that money to just sit around and collect dust. So we invest it all over the world in a variety, a diverse array of investments. And we earn a lot of interest on the money that we're investing. And it's these three sources of income, the employee contributions, the employer contributions, and the investment earnings, that give us this big pool of money that we call a Sarah's fund. So what do we do with this money? Why are we collecting it? Well, you, as you work throughout your entire career, throughout your entire membership with Acera, you're earning more and more credit toward retirement. And then at some point in the future, you're going to retire and you're going to stop earning credit toward retirement and you're going to start collecting the retirement that you earned throughout your career in the form of a monthly retirement allowance that you're going to receive every month on the last business day of the month for the rest of your life. You cannot outlive your retirement. It happens for the rest of your life after you retire from Acera. And you'll see that I'm using the term retirement allowance here or monthly retirement allowance. I'll throw around probably different terms during the presentation, including pension, pension benefit, pension allowance, retirement benefit. These are all synonyms for this same concept, this lifetime retirement allowance that you're going to get every month for the rest of your life. Okay, so there's a lot of lingo for that one concept. Okay, let me show you this pension milestone chart, and this will provide some context for some of the different details of the retirement system that I'm going to talk about. Okay, so these are some of the milestones that you will encounter and probably have already encountered in your membership with Acera, because you're getting ready to retire. So you probably have some of these milestones behind you at this point, or many of them behind you. Just spilled water on myself. Sorry about that. Okay, so first milestone is your date of hire. This is your first day of work in that full-time retirement eligible position. Now, if you started out working for your employer in some other capacity, like maybe you were a temp, or maybe you were under contract, or some other capacity, that's fine. This first day of work, this date of hire, this is your first day in that full-time retirement eligible position. So maybe a lot of you probably got hired right into that position, and this would be the first day that you were in the office. The second milestone on the chart is your date of entry into Acera. So what happens most of the time for most people is that 2 weeks goes by and the first day of your second pay period, that is your first day of Acera membership, your date of entry. And this is when you start earning credit toward retirement. Now, for I believe the Housing Authority and Livermore Area Recreation and Park District, these two dates are the same. There's no 2 week lag time. Your date of hire is your date of entry into Acera. Okay, then 5 years goes by if you're working full time. Once you have achieved 5 years of service credit with Acera, which basically means that you've worked five full-time years as an Acera member or the equivalent, you are considered vested in the retirement system. And vesting, it's a little bit of a loose concept, but it kind of means guaranteed. When you're vested in the system, in the retirement system, you're guaranteed the vested benefits. You're basically guaranteed the guaranteed benefits. So what happens at 5 years is basically you unlock the ability to start collecting a lot of the benefits that you've been earning um, in the retirement system. Okay, so then what happens? Well, some other indeterminate amount of time goes by, and through some combination of your years of service credit and your age, you become eligible to retire. And there's a few different combinations that will get you there. I'll show you those in the second half of the presentation. So it'll be a little bit different for everybody, but this is the first day that you could physically retire if you want to. Now, many people don't do that. Many people will continue working past their retirement eligibility date and to earn more and more credit toward retirement, because the more credit you earn, the higher your retirement allowance will be once you retire. And I'll show you how that works in just a few minutes. Okay, so then at some point in the future, you are going to decide to stop working at your job. And this is your last day on payroll, your termination date. This is your date that you write on um, your letter of resignation to your employer. And then for many of you, if your plan is going straight from active work into retirement, on the next consecutive calendar day, that will be your first day of retirement. Okay, so your termination date is the last day that you earn service credit toward retirement. Your retirement date is the day that you start collecting the retirement that you've earned. And you're going to collect that retirement, like I said, every last business day of the month for the rest of your life until your death. And that's when your retirement payments stop. Now, at the time of retirement, you had the opportunity on your retirement application, which we'll talk about in the second half of the presentation, to name a beneficiary for a continuance. And a continuance simply means a continuing monthly payment after your death. And in many cases, it is until the beneficiary's death. And so that's why there's one more milestone in the chart, which is your beneficiary's death. That is when the continuance payments to your beneficiary would stop. And that would conclude all of Sarah paying out all the benefits that we owe you and your beneficiaries. Okay, so at this point, I would like to introduce this extra tool that we've made available. Now, this is purely optional if you want to use this. There was a link to this in the email that we sent out. If you didn't download it already, I'll show you where to get it. All you do is you go out to your browser and you go to acera.org. And you can either type in acera.org/worksheet and it'll take you right to it. It's a PDF. Or you can go under News and Events, go down to Retirement Planning Seminars, the fourth selection down. And then you scroll down a little bit until you get to under webinar options, it's the pre-retirement webinar. You open up that accordion there, and there's a little link there for retirement planning worksheet. So you open that up. This is once it comes up, loading. Okay. This is a 2-page PDF. And so what I recommend is you click the download button, go ahead and download it to your device if you want to, use this. But this is fillable, so you can type stuff in here, or you can print it out and, fill it out in pencil or pen. Um, what this is that the reason that we created this is I'm going to tell you a lot of things about how the retirement system works, and you're going to learn a lot of specific numbers that apply to your retirement situation and your membership with Acera. And this is just a handy way to record all of those numbers and other items as we go along. So I'll keep referring to this as we go along. I'll show you different screenshots of different pieces of this. But you can see that there's 2 pages here. So that's how you get that. Purely optional. If you just want to use a scratch sheet of paper to take notes, feel free. Or if you have a really good memory, you can just remember. Let's see here. There's a question that just popped up. Okay. So the question is, if we bought back the first 2 weeks of employment, then our entry date for Acera would be the same as our employment start date, right? Incorrect. Um, but that's a common thing that people wonder. Your entry date is going to be your entry date, whatever it is. Buying extra service credit, like that 2 weeks, that doesn't change your entry date. All it does is increase the amount of service credit that we will include in the retirement formula for you when we calculate your retirement. And I'll show you the retirement formula in just a few minutes. But yeah, sorry, that doesn't roll your entry date into Acera back. Okay, so going back to the presentation. So what you're seeing here is a screenshot of one piece of that worksheet. And if at this point you want to, you could write in your Acera entry date on the worksheet if you happen to know what it is. And you'll note that I say approximate dates here. If you know that it's like November of 2003, just write that in or something. Because in most cases, what I think is going to be the case is that you're going to have, way more service credit than you need to retire, than the minimum you need to retire. So like writing down the exact entry date isn't super important. If you do happen to want to write the exact date down, you can always log into our website. Going back to the website, you just go out to acera.org, and at the top of every page there's a login button. You log into your account on our website, it'll tell you your exact Acera entry date. Okay, and at this point, on the worksheet, if you want to, you could pencil in your projected retirement date if you happen to already have one in mind. Now, you may learn something during the presentation that makes you want to adjust that date by a few days or a few weeks. So that's why I say you might want to just pencil it in at this point. Okay, and really quickly, a couple more details about vesting. Vesting, like I said, means guaranteed. That's the guaranteed benefits. And that happens with 5 years of service credit in Acera, and then includes reciprocal service credit. If you all have reciprocity with a different California public retirement system and you've linked them together, the service credit combined across all the systems gets you over that 5-year mark. And where does the guarantee come from? The guarantee comes from state law. State law tells us how to do everything with the SARA. It governs everything that we do, how it tells us how to calculate your retirement, and yeah, governs everything that we do. And the vested benefits are that retirement, that monthly retirement allowance, retirement benefit that you will receive every month for the rest of your life, an annual cost of living increase to that retirement allowance, which happens every April 1st. I'll tell you more about that in the second half of the presentation. And so that's an increase that you get every year to your retirement allowance. And then a $1,000 lump sum death benefit that is considered a kind of a basic vested death benefit. And there's other death benefits that come with each of the 5 retirement options, and I will talk about that in the second half of the presentation. So now that you know what your vested date is, you basically take your ACERA entry date, and if you worked full time, you just basically add 5 full-time years. That's your vested date. The vested date, like I said, isn't super important because if you know you're way past 5 years, then, it doesn't even matter. There, yeah. Okay, so let me tell you about your tier. Your tier, you're all in one of these tiers with ACERA, and your tier is based on your date of entry into ACERA. So the way it works is that if you entered ACERA before the cutoff date for the tier, that puts you in the tier, in the earlier tier. Okay. And the way to find yourself on this chart is, first of all, if you're a safety member, which is sheriff's deputies and probation officers, and there may be some other sworn officers in there, you are going to look at the bottom timeline here. If you are not a safety member, that means you're a general member. And if you're a general member, you're going to look at the top timeline here, unless you're a general member who works for the housing authority. And then you're going to be looking at the second timeline down. If you're a general member who works for Livermore Area Recreation and Park District, then you're going to look at the third timeline down. So let's say that you entered ACERA, you're a general member and you entered ACERA before July 1st, 1983. Well, that would have put you into tier 1. If you entered ACERA July 1st, 1983, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, that would have put you in tier 2. If you entered ACERA January 1st, 2013 and beyond, that would put you in tier 4. And that is true for each one of the timelines in any case. Now you'll notice that the Housing Authority is a different cutoff for tier 1. LERPD doesn't have tier 2. They have tier 3, and they have a different cutoff for tier 1. Safety members have 3 different tier 2s, tier 2B, tier 2C, and tier 2D. And if you're a safety member who entered ACERA October 17th, 2010, all the way up to December 31st, 2012, that you had a choice between tier 2C and tier 2D. And you made that choice within your first 45 days of safety membership. And if you didn't make the choice, then you were defaulted into whatever the lower tier was. I forget which one. In any case, if you don't know what tier you're in, you can double check by, again, logging into your account on the ACERA website by going to acera.org/login or going to acera.org and clicking the login button. The difference between the tiers is the way that we calculate your retirement benefit is going to be slightly different depending which tier you're in. And you'll see that. I'll point that out as we go along. Okay, this is another screenshot of a piece of that retirement worksheet. So if you just learned what tier you're in, or if you already knew, you can go ahead and mark your tier on the retirement worksheet in that section. Okay, let's talk about getting an estimate of your future retirement benefit. Now, before I show you the benefit estimating tool, I want to explain to you how we calculate your retirement benefit estimate, because it's going to answer a lot of questions that come up about how we arrive at that benefit estimate and how we arrive at your final retirement benefit. And it's also going to tell you some details about doing some of that final prep work right before you retire. Okay, so what you're looking at here is the pension formula that we use to calculate your monthly retirement allowance. So when you go to retire, for each one of you, we're going to do this calculation. Now there's three factors you can see in this multiplication, and these are the 3 categories in which you earn more and more credit toward retirement throughout your career. Okay, you earn more credit in the age factor percentage category by getting older. And you'll see in just a moment when I show you the chart, you get higher and higher age factor percentages in the formula just by retiring at an older and older age. The second way that you earn more credit toward retirement is by the time that you work, the service credit. So if you work full time for 20 years, you earn 20 years of service credit. If you work half time for 20 years, you would earn 10 years of service credit. So it's measured in years. And in fact, it's calculated down to the fraction of a day. So you're going to earn service credit all the way up until the last 15 minutes on your termination date, your last day of work. And you'll see when you look at your service credit number, there's a lot of decimal places after it. It'll say like 15.87265. Those decimal places are us counting your service credit down to the fraction of a day, and you get all that credit when we calculate your retirement. And the final category that you're earning credit toward retirement is the highest average monthly salary category. This is the amount of money that you make in your job. And we're going to do this highest average salary calculation and plug this number in here. So the higher and higher salaries you make through cost of living increases and raises equals a higher, like more and more credit in the salary category toward retirement. Okay. And then we do the multiplication, and that tells us your monthly retirement allowance for the rest of your life. Now, let me explain this in let me illuminate this for you a little bit further. Let me give you an example, and I think this will further help you understand how this works. Okay. In retirement, you are going to get as your monthly retirement allowance for life, you're going to get a percentage of your highest salary from anywhere in your career for each individual year of service that you work. So let me plug some numbers into the formula, and I think it will help illustrate this concept because the sentence is saying in English what this multiplication is doing. Okay, let's say, for example, that the percentage of your highest salary that you are going to get for each year of service is 2% exactly, 2.00%. And let's also say, for this example, that you earn in your career, by the time you retire, exactly 20 years of service credit. Okay, so what that means is that you are going to get 2% of your highest salary for each individual one of those 20 years of service. So if we take the 2% and we add it all up 20 times, 2% plus 2% plus 2%, we're essentially multiplying 2% times 20 years, which is 40%. That means that your retirement allowance is going to be 40% of what you were earning while you were working. So to finish out the example, let's say that your highest average monthly salary while you were working was $5,000 per month. So you can already see that your monthly retirement allowance is going to be 40% of $5,000. So we multiply them together. That's $2,000 because $2,000 is 40% of $5,000. And so that's how it works. See, it's actually pretty simple once you plug in some numbers. Okay. The bottom line here is that the higher any of these numbers are, the higher the age factor percentage, the higher the service credit, the higher the highest average monthly salary. Because it's a multiplication, it adds up, it multiplies out to a higher monthly retirement allowance for the rest of your life. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is explain some more details about how we know what numbers to plug in, which numbers to plug into these three categories into the formula for you when we calculate your retirement allowance. Okay. And I think that will okay, so there's a question about the salary, and I'll get to that in just a few minutes. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about the age factor percentage. How do we figure out which number to plug in for you? Because it's not necessarily going to be that 2%. It's going to be based on your tier and your age at retirement. Now, what I'm showing you here is a sample age factor chart, and all you're going to do is look at the column for your tier. So if you're a general tier 2 member, you're just going to look at that column and you forget about all the other numbers. And the same goes with whatever tier you're in. Okay. And again, safety members are sheriff's deputies and probation officers. General members is everyone else. Okay. So The way this works is, let's say that you're a general tier 2 member and you're going to retire at age 62. Well, we need to plug in a number to the formula in this spot here. So we're going to come over to the chart. We're going to go down to age 62. We're going to go over to general tier 2 and we're going to see 2.09%. So that's the number that we're going to plug into the formula for you, 2.09%. So in your case, you would get 2.09% of your highest salary for each year of service credit. Okay. Now you'll notice that the numbers get bigger as you age, as you get older. So if you retire at an older and older age, you get a higher and higher age factor percentage, up to a maximum age factor percentage for your tier 8 caps out, and that's what's denoted in the blue boxes. So like, for example, general tier 2, 2.43% at age 65 is the highest age factor percentage that you can get. If you retire at age 66 or 67, you would still get to 2.43%. And you'll also notice probably that I skipped a bunch of the ages. And that's because I was just making the chart to give you a few examples. And really, the reason is that there's so many incremental increases that they don't all fit on the slide because the age factor percentage increases every quarter year that you age, every 3 months that you age, you actually get a slightly higher age factor percentage, and it's based on your birthday. So if your birthday, for example, is January 15th, 1 quarter after your birthday, 3 months later is April 15th. Another quarter after that is July 15th. Another quarter after that is October 15th. And then back to your January 15th birthday. So in that example, every time you pass one of those quarter year dates, you're aging another 3 months, you go up another notch in the age factor chart. You get a slightly higher incremental age factor percentage, which means that your retirement allowance increases a little bit just from that age factor percentage increase alone. And the last thing I'll say is that if you want to see the full chart, we have that out on our website at asera.org/age. Okay. So that's the age factor percentage, the details about that. Okay, so the second factor in the formula, the years of service credit. How do we calculate that? So here's the pension milestone chart again. You start earning service credit when you enter ACERA on your date of entry. And you're going to earn service credit all the way up until your termination date. And like I said, we calculate it down to the fraction of a day, and you get all those decimal places in the formula for you. And to that question that somebody had, when you purchase additional service credit, which I'll talk about in just a second, that increases the number in the formula for you. Okay, so regarding earning service credit, you earn service credit during your regular work hours. You also earn service credit when you're out on your earned leave times. They don't count against you. So when you go out on the earned vacation, sick leave, management leave, comp time, holidays, floating holidays, you're already earning service credit during those times when you mark those on your timesheet. Those don't count against you. So it's a pretty good deal. Now, there's times when you do not earn service credit, and those include anytime you're on leave without pay, you're not earning service credit during that time. If you purchase vacation, so some of our employers will allow that. Let's say that you earn 3 weeks of vacation per year and you want to purchase an additional week. You purchase that vacation, and now you have 4 weeks of vacation to use. And let's say you go out on a 4-week vacation and you mark for the first 3 weeks, you earned vacation, and the last week, you purchased vacation. Well, during that week when you marked the purchase vacation on your timesheet, you did not earn service credit for that time. And that is also not purchasable later. Now, I like to tell people that if you've purchased a week of vacation here and there over a long career, whenever I've sat down to do the math on that, that does not affect your retirement allowance very much. It's it might be like a few cents or $1. So I wouldn't sweat it if you had to take a purchased vacation here and there throughout your career. You got to go out on vacation and you needed to do that for your mental health and probably physical health. So I wouldn't sweat that. Okay. Also, if you sell vacation, now this is a different concept. This is where you take your earned vacation and you sell it back to your employer for cash. And in that scenario, you're not actually going out on vacation. You're coming into your job, and you're just selling your vacation balance for extra cash. Now, that does not count toward your service credit amount. You may get credit in the salary component of the retirement formula, and I will tell you all that you ever wanted to know about that in just a few minutes. Finally, you do not earn service credit while you're out on overtime, on-call time, or standby time. Well, during those times that you're working, you don't earn service credit. There's a question that just popped up. Does comp time that is cashed out at retirement add to service credit? So I don't think I've never heard of comp time being cashed out. My what I've always been told is that everything except for the earned vacation is use it or lose it. So, and with the caveat of sick leave, and I'll talk about how sick leave, that your sick leave balance will add to your service credit. But management leave, comp time, holidays, floating holidays, I've always been told that's use it or lose it. If you have a balance by the time you stop working, you just lose it. You don't get cashed out. You don't get service credit. Now, if you have a different, um, if you have a different arrangement with your employer where comp time is cashed out, my educated guess on that, my educated hypothesis is that you will not get service credit for that because you only earn service credit for time that you actually spend. So I don't think you would earn service credit for that. It's possible you might get salary credit for that, although I've never heard of that. And like I said, I'm 90% sure you're not going to get cashed out for your comp time, but I would go ahead and check with your employer on that. And I would also go ahead and write into Acera on that and check with my colleagues because they're the ones that are the experts on all the details. And I'm going to type in the web page that has our email contact form, where you can email us, acera.org/contact, or you can go ahead and call us to verify that. Um, yeah. So thanks for that question. Okay, so sticking with the topic of service credit, because maximizing service credit is one of the ways to maximize your retirement allowance. So having the most service credit that you can possibly have in the formula when we calculate it will maximize your retirement allowance. There is this thing that you can do, which is purchase additional service credit. Now, you can't just purchase extra service credit that doesn't fit one of these categories, what they used to call airtime in other pension funds. We've never had that ability to, but that's not something that you can do. You can't purchase airtime. But if you have a type of time that the law didn't allow for you to earn service credit when you incurred the time, but it does allow for you to purchase it later, which includes the times on this list. Then you can purchase this additional time, and that will increase your service credit in the formula. And just some quick examples are if you worked for your employer part-time before you started working in that full-time retirement eligible position, and I'm not talking about working for a temporary or employment agency. I'm not talking about working under contract. This is just plain old part-time work. That's purchasable. The county's temporary assignment pool time, which is also known as TAP, that's purchasable. Project work or seasonal work or per diem work. There's some other categories in there. That work is purchasable. That's 2 weeks between your date of hire and your date of entry is purchasable. If you ever went out on unpaid leave during your career, including unpaid medical leave for your own medical condition, up to a year's worth per instance of unpaid medical leave. Also, disability insurance leave or workers' comp leave, and military leave, and this is not prior military service. This is military leave where you go out on military leave during your active um, career with your employer. Once you return from these leave times, those became purchasable. Also, redepositing prior memberships where you used to be an Acera member in the past and you left and you took a refund of your contribution account and then you came back and you can redeposit an equivalent amount of money plus interest to get that original service credit back from that original membership. There's also another category here that I should mention that I actually should put on the side, which is a redeposit of community property amounts. So if you get divorced or you dissolve your domestic partnership, and you had earned credit toward retirement while you were married or while you were in the state registered domestic partnership, um, and the community property got divided when you got divorced or dissolved that domestic partnership, and that means that your ex-spouse or domestic partner got a separate account. If they take a refund of that account, we send you a letter in the mail telling you that they did that and giving you the opportunity to redeposit an equivalent amount of money, and you could get your service credit back that they took with them when your account got divided. And that's called a redeposit of community property. And then there's other California public agency work, which is where you used to be in you used to work for another California public agency and you're not eligible for their pension, often because you didn't work there for long enough to qualify for benefits in their pension. Well, you can take a refund of your contribution account over at that pension and you can buy an equivalent amount of time as a service credit. So I don't talk I don't take a deep dive into the purchasing service credit topic in this presentation, mostly because everyone who was going to purchase service credit mostly has by this point. If you haven't and you're interested in more details about that topic, visit acera.org/purchase, and we have a full article on the details of all the different types of time that are eligible, and how you actually make the service credit purchase request and what it will cost, including the prior contributions that you would have made during that time, plus the interest. And then we'll send so we calculate all that for you and then send you a letter giving you the opportunity to make the purchase. Okay, so the one last final thing I want to say about the service credit part of the retirement formula is what happens to your unused sick leave. So most of you, many of you, will probably have a sick leave balance when you stop working. If you go straight from active work into retirement, which means, and I'm showing you a calendar here, an example calendar, which means that your last day on payroll, your termination date from your employer, is the day before your retirement date. Another way to say it is your retirement date is the next calendar day after your last day on payroll. That means you're going straight into retirement from active status with no gap. You're not becoming a deferred member. You're not spending any time as a deferred member. You're not deferring your retirement to some later date. If that is the case, then we will convert your sick leave on a 2-to-1 basis to additional service credit. Basically, you're going to get half of your sick leave as additional service credit up to a cap. Now, the cap is in your memorandum of understanding, which is your MOU. That's the abbreviation. And for many of the MOUs, I don't have them all memorized, but for many of them, the cap is 125 days of sick leave. And so what happens is we would take as much of the sick leave up to the cap as we can, and we would convert it to service credit. So let's say, for example, you were under one of those MOUs that had a 125-day cap. Let's say you had 130 days of sick leave on the books when you retired, when you stopped working and retired. So that extra 5 days above the cap, we can't do anything with. So those just vanish. So those disappear. So the remaining 125 days, we'll divide those by 2, and that will give you an additional 62.5 days of extra service credit in the formula for you. And it's not calendar days, it's work days. So if you stretch out 62.5 days over a 5-day work week, that equals about 12 plus work weeks. That's about a quarter year. So you would get an extra 0.25 years of service credit on your service credit number and that would increase your retirement allowance when we calculate it and for the rest of your life. Now, what this does not do that people will commonly ask about is this does not push out your retirement date. Your retirement date is your retirement date. The only thing that this does is it increases the number that we put in the formula, the amount of service credit that we put in the formula for you. Oh, and one more thing I'll say about this regarding Alameda Health System employees is that you all earn your leave in one bucket called PTO, paid time off, I think. And so what is going to happen is that the PTO does not count for this. The extra PTO you have will count toward the salary component of the formula, and it will help increase your retirement allowance in the salary component. But the PTO will not help will not count toward this sick leave. We don't do the sick leave conversion with excess PTO. Now some of you there I think there's some old types of sick leave like catastrophic sick leave or something. I can't remember the terminology. It's balances that you may still have, and those will count toward this, and we will do the sick leave conversion on those other balances. Okay, so I told you about the age factor percentage part of the formula. I told you how we calculate the service credit. Let me tell you about how we calculate the salary component of the formula when we're calculating your lifetime retirement allowance. So when we go to calculate your retirement, we are going to need to plug a number into this spot, the highest average monthly salary. So what our software is going to do is it is going to find your period of highest pay from anywhere in your career, your period of highest consecutive pay. And this is known in our pension lingo as your final compensation period. Now, if you're in tiers 1 and 3, and this is one of the differences between the tiers, you'll notice. If you're in tiers 1 and 3, your final compensation period is your highest consecutive 26 biweekly or 12 monthly pay periods, depending on how you're paid. Tiers 2 and 4, it's your highest consecutive 78 biweekly or 36 monthly pay periods. So essentially, in tiers 1 and 3, it's your highest year of pay consecutively, and tiers 2 and 4, it's your highest consecutive 3 years of pay. Now, our goal for the calculation is to find your highest average monthly salary over this entire final compensation period. So our software, what it does is it has all your payroll records on file, so we can do these calculations, and it just takes the total amount of money that you made during this highest 1 year or highest 3 years, and it divides by the number of months in that period, 12 or 36, and that gives us your highest average monthly salary. So it's a pretty simple calculation. And then we take that highest average monthly salary, plug it into the formula, multiply it by the other two factors, and that gives us your retirement allowance. Now, what pay is included? I see there was a question about out of class work. So what type of pay is included? Well, first off, for all these pay types, we're talking about gross pay before any deductions are taken out, okay? So of course your base pay is going to be included in this because that's going to be the main component of this calculation. Now, some other pay codes may be included. Sometimes these are called footnotes. Um, so there's like 1,000 of these other pay codes. So I don't have them all memorized. But you can find out for yourself whether your pay code is going to be included in the calculation or not by visiting acera.org/paycodes. You open up the PDF list for your employer, and you'll see all the pay codes listed, and it'll say yes or no whether the pay code will be included in this calculation or not. So, to the question about whether out of class pay is going to be included, you worked 8 months out of class. I think that's probably going to be an additional pay code. And so, what you would want to do is go to that page on our website, acera.org/paycodes, and look up that pay code, and you'll be able to see yes or no whether it is included or not. Because, and like I said, I don't know off the top of my head whether that particular pay code will be included in the highest average salary calculation. And then going back to the service credit, the previous topic regarding Alameda Health System, you're asking about extended sick leave. Will that count at retirement time? Yes, the extended sick leave, that's the term I was looking for. That we will convert that to service credit on a 2-to-1 basis up to the cap. So yes. And then there's a question, can I think of the 2-to-1 sick leave used toward the additional service credit as vacation leave? I'm not quite sure what you're asking. Um, the sick leave and the vacation leave, they're two different categories of leave. So the sick leave is going to count toward the service credit part of the equation. The vacation leave, if you get cashed out for it, which is actually the next two bullet points on here, it's only going to count toward this salary component of the equation. Um, so maybe, yeah, maybe you can clarify what you're asking about that. Okay. And that's a good segue into the final two bullet points on this slide, which is some vacation sales and some vacation cash out can be included as salary for the purposes of calculating your highest average monthly salary. Um, and uh, and you'll see on our website, sometimes this is also known as final average salary. Now, this is only for tiers one and two, these last two bullet points. Tiers three and four are disallowed from having any of this money included. In vacation sales, that is when you sell your earned vacation back to your employer for cash while you're still working. Vacation cash out, also known as vacation payoff, is when you simply have vacation left over in the books at the time that you stop working, and they will cash you out for all or most of that at that time. And if your final compensation period is at the end of your career, then some of that could be included. Okay. So, tier three and four members, you can take a little mental snooze if you want, because we're gonna take a deep dive into this, how vacation sales and cash out affects the final average, highest average salary component of the formula. Um, but bear with us because I'll try to make the discussion efficient so I don't bore you. Okay. So here's what we're talking about. Here's how this works, okay? What we're talking about is the vacation sales and vacation cash out that you make during that period of highest pay, that final compensation period. Now, for the vast majority of people, the final compensation period is at the end of your career because you're making the highest rate of pay at the end of your career. Okay. And if that's the case, if you sell vacation during that final compensation period while you're still employed, or if they cash you out for your unused vacation at the time that you stop working, um, a combination of these two, when we add them up, is the total vacation compensation that we will be considering whether it will increase and how much of it will increase your retirement allowance when you retire. Now, if your final compensation period is some earlier time in your career, because at the end of your career, you're making a lower rate of pay, which is totally fine, the vacation cash out will not count. Only if any vacation sales you made during that earlier final compensation period. Okay, so the idea here, the whole theory, the whole theme of this discussion is that if you are compensated, going back one slide, for your unused vacation in one or two of these ways during that final compensation period. Okay. So this is, you're not taking the earned vacation, you're getting cash for it by selling the vacation or having it on the books when you stop working. If you are compensated for your unused vacation during that final compensation period, your salary during that time is a little bit bigger, slightly higher. If your total salary during the final compensation period is a little bit higher, that means that when we go to calculate your average salary during that final compensation period, it's a little bit higher. Because your average salary is one of the three multipliers, one of the three factors in that retirement allowance pension formula, when we multiply it out, that means your retirement allowance is a little bit bigger. So, in summary, if you are if you are compensated for your unused vacation during the final compensation period, that means that your retirement allowance gets a little bit larger. How much larger? When I say a little bit larger, what am I talking about? Well, here is an approximation. These are approximate percentage increases. So this is not going to be exactly this, but this is kind of a guideline that I use to like illustrate what the effect of selling vacation and or cashing out vacation has on your retirement allowance. Let's say that you were able to sell and or cash out 6 weeks worth of your earned vacation during that final compensation period. Well, if you're in tier two, that would increase your retirement allowance by 3.8%. And it would increase it by that amount at the beginning when we calculate your retirement. So we're going to be including the salary for the vacation compensation when we calculate your retirement at the beginning of your retirement. So you're going to get that increase immediately upon retirement, and that increase you will last for your entire retirement for the rest of your life. So your retirement allowance at the beginning would be 3.8% higher. And you can see the effect of more and more weeks of vacation compensation. And for tier one, the effect of it is accelerated because of the shorter final compensation period, the 1 year final compensation period. Okay, so there is a cap in the law, in the state law, on how much vacation compensation we are allowed to include as salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement allowance. And you'll notice the word must here, that Acera must include the amount of compensation that we must include. So the reason that I use that word on the slide is because that's the way the law is written. If you sell vacation and or cash out vacation during that final compensation period, we have to include that as salary. We have to consider that as salary by law in your retirement calculation. And because that's the way the law works, and that's how we must calculate your retirement allowance, that's why I'm taking this time to explain to you how this calculation works and how it affects your retirement allowance. Because some people who don't have county pensions like this, they might observe this whole topic and they might think that this is something that is like nefarious or something, but that is far from the case because this is the way the law tells us to do it. So we have to like this is the way we have to do it, and so I might as well explain to you how it works. There's nothing that it's all above board. This is just how the pension system works. This is how it's built. Okay. So let me tell you, let me speak to Alameda Health System employees first. Let me help you understand what the cap is on the amount of vacation compensation that we are allowed to include as salary for the purposes of calculating your retirement. Um, and then I'll talk to everyone else who works for the other employers. Okay. So from Alameda Health System employees, what you're seeing here is a screenshot of a piece of that retirement planning worksheet that I showed you earlier on that PDF. Okay. And all you do is you look at your pay stub and you see how many hours of PTO you earn per pay period. And you plug that in here. In this example, this person earned 6.7692 hours of PTO per pay period. Now, all you need to do to figure out your cap is do a simple multiplication. If you're in tier one, you multiply that number by 13, and that converts that converts it to the hours. So what it does is it tells you the hours of maximum hours of vacation compensation we're allowed to include as salary for calculating your retirement. If you're in tier two, you take that number and you multiply it by 39, and that gives you your limit in hours. In this example, it's 264 hours. So if you had up to 264 hours of PTO on the books, when you go to retire, they will cash you out for that, and we would include all of that cashed out amount up to 264 hours as salary, and that would make your retirement allowance go up. Okay. Now, there's an exception here. For AHS employees who are in the UAPD union, you don't have to do any math. There's a flat amount. If you're in tier one, it's 120 hours is the cap. And for tier two, it's 360 hours is the cap. Okay. So that is your cap in hours. Okay, so this is for the next people I'm going to talk to is the county, people who work for the county, and the courts and the housing authority. And that's because Livermore Area Recreation and Park District and First Five, I don't think you're allowed to sell vacation, and that uh, disallows us from being able to include any vacation compensation in your salary calculation. So this is just Alameda County Courts and Housing Authority in Tier 1 and Tier 2. Okay. So what this is a screenshot of that retirement planning worksheet, the different section of it for calculating the cap for the county and the other employees. Okay. Now, what you're going to need to know is two numbers: how much vacation you earn per year and how many weeks of vacation you're allowed to sell per year. And you plug those in. If you're in tier one, you just use the first column. Okay. So in this example, this person earns 5 weeks of vacation per year, and this person is allowed to sell 2 weeks of vacation per year if they want to. If you're in tier two, you're going to need to think about your 3 year final compensation period. And you're going to need to think about how many weeks of vacation you will be earning at the end of each of the 1 year periods in that 3 year final compensation period. Um, a lot of the time, it's going to be the same over the whole chart. But like if you unlock the higher amount of vacation earnings by increasing seniority during that time, it might be higher. Like let's say I think if you've been working for the county for 21 years, I think you go from earning 4 weeks to 5 weeks per year. And so if that happened during that 3 year final compensation period, you might have a four in here and then two fives or two fours and a five. Okay. That's totally fine. So you just plug it in however that works. Okay, then you plug in how much vacation you're allowed to sell per year. These numbers don't really change. They might change if your contract gets renegotiated, like if the union renegotiates your contract. But these change very infrequently. So usually that's the same three numbers over the course of that 3 years. And if you don't know how much you're allowed to sell per year, usually your payroll clerk will know how much you're allowed to sell, or your human resources officer. Okay, so you plug in your numbers in the worksheet. And then you're going to take these numbers and you're going to go out to the calculator on our website and you're going to plug them into the calculator. So let me show you how to do that. Okay, in your browser, you're going to type in acera.org/vacation. And that's a shortcut that's going to take you to this vacation calculator. Okay, so it's going to take you to this section. Understand how unused vacation leave affects your retirement allowance. So you're going to scroll down to Alameda County Courts and Housing Authority. You're going to pop open the accordion and you're going to use the calculator right here. Okay, first of all, you select your tier and then you're going to plug in, you delete the zeros, how much vacation you earn per year. So in that example, it was 5. And then you select from the drop down how many weeks of vacation you're allowed to sell per year. And it will tell you what your limit is in weeks. This person can, we are allowed to include a maximum of 2 weeks of vacation compensation for the purposes of calculating their salary. Now, if you're in tier two, you'll see it opens up a little bit more and you can put in each one of those 1 year periods. And it gives you the total at the bottom. Now, if you don't want to use the calculator, I'll just tell you how it works. It's actually very simple. What it's doing is it's comparing the two numbers from each year period, and it's taking the lesser of them and adding them together. So what's the lesser of 5 and 2? 2 in each case. So then it's adding 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. So it's very basic. Um, So then you take your limit that you get from the calculator and you plug it in. You plug it in here. Okay. Okay, now, if you want to try to maximize the amount of vacation that you get, that you sell or get cashed out for, the amount of vacation compensation that we're going to consider salary for calculating your retirement, you would simply need to either sell that amount of vacation or cash it out. Okay. Um, so in this scenario, you could simply have 6 weeks of vacation left over on the books when you stop working and retire and sell zero, and that would get you up to the six that is your particular limit based on your numbers. Okay. Now, let me give you a slightly different scenario that will help illustrate an additional rule that is in play here. Um, let's say that you earn 4 weeks of vacation per year and you're allowed to sell three. There's some managers that are in this scenario here. Your employer has this additional rule that is in play here. And the rule, and just really briefly, if we plug in these numbers into the calculator, we will find that this person's limit of vacation compensation that we're allowed to include a salary for calculating their retirement is 9, because the lesser of each of these three numbers is 3. 3 plus 3 plus 3 is 9. The rule that your employer has is they will not cash you out for more than 2 times your annual accrual rate of vacation. In this person's case, they accrue vacation at a rate of 4 weeks per year. 4 times 2 is 8. So you can start to see the problem here. Their limit, if they wanted to get up to it, is 9 weeks worth of vacation compensation, but they can't do that simply by the cash out. Okay. Because if they had 9 weeks on the books when they stopped working, because of their employer rule, that extra week above the 8, above 2 times their accrual rate, that would disappear. It would just vanish. They wouldn't get anything for it. They wouldn't get cash for it. They wouldn't get to take that week of vacation. It would just disappear. So to avoid that, what you do is you watch the seminar while I explain this to you, and you kind of think ahead. Okay, I calculated my limit. It's more than 2 times my accrual rate. So in order to get up to my limit, if that's my goal, that doesn't have to be your goal, but if that's your goal, you take your cash out. You have 2 times your accrual rate on the books when you retire, and the difference that you need to get up to your limit is the amount that you sell while you're still employed. Okay. So during that 3 years for that tier 2 final compensation period, you would sell an additional week. You would have 8 weeks on the books when you stopped working, and 1 plus 8 is 9, and that would get you up to your limit. Okay, so when people tend to ask, okay, well, what happens if I already sold a bunch of vacation? A lot of people will just sell vacation. You're looking for extra cash, or you're anticipating, wanting to have this vacation amount of compensation, for this calculation, and that's totally fine. You have two options, okay? So let's stick with the same example. Um, let's say you sold 5 weeks of vacation during that 3-year tier 2 final compensation period. Well, your first option is you just cash out the difference. So instead of cashing out 8, you cash out 4. So 5 plus 4 is 9, and that gets you up to your limit. Or you could cash out up to 2 times your accrual rate, and that's okay. 5 plus 8 is 13. Okay. So, but we are only allowed to include 9 weeks worth of vacation compensation for calculating your retirement. So, and that's what we'll do. So you went over your limit, but that's fine. We'll just take 9 of those 13 weeks of cash vacation compensation, and we'll use that to increase your salary, and that will increase your retirement allowance. And the 4 extra weeks will still go into your bank account. And in fact, all of the money goes into your bank account in any case. Whenever you sell vacation, that money all goes into your bank account. Whenever you cash out vacation, all that money goes into your bank account. So in this example, you got all the 13 weeks worth of cash. So it's not like what you're doing, because some people get confused. You're not like buying additional salary points or something. You're getting paid. And it's the fact that you're getting paid We see that come through in your payroll records, and that's what we use to calculate your salary. Okay, so one more thing that I want to say is for tier one members, you usually don't, if you're trying to get up to your limit, you don't have to strategize about this. You just cash it out. You just cash out your limit. Don't worry about selling. For all of you who can, going back a few slides, if you can get up to your limit just from the cash out, don't worry about selling. Just cash it out. I think it's the easiest thing to do. Okay, so can I answer any questions about this topic on how vacation compensation affects your salary before I move on? Because some people will have a lot of questions about this. And while I'm waiting for the questions to pop up, let me get back to that one question that was up on the board. Okay, okay. Uh, I get your question now. Okay, so the question is, going back to the previous topic, when we were talking about the service credit component of the retirement formula and how we calculate your service credit, how you earn service credit. When I was telling you about the sick leave conversion to service credit, okay, where we convert your sick leave on a 2-to-1 basis up to the cap. We convert your sick leave on a 2-to-1 basis to service credit, and that increases your service credit part of the formula. And the question that it looks like you're having is, do I also get salary credit in the salary component of the formula for that? And also, sub question, do I get cash for that? And the answer is no. You don't get cash and you don't get salary credit for it. The only component of the three-factor retirement formula that the sick leave conversion increases is the service credit number. Okay, so you don't get paid, you don't get cashed out for it, and you don't get, as a result of not getting cashed out for it, you don't get salary credit in the formula. You're welcome. Thanks for clarifying that. Okay, and then there's a question, is the highest average salary calculation based on the calendar year? Thanks for that question. It is not based on the calendar year. And then you may ask, well, is it based on the fiscal year? It is not based on the fiscal year. It's based on your particular retirement scenario and your career situation. Because the final compensation period is and from anywhere in your career. If you're in tiers 2 and 4, it's your highest 78 or 36 monthly pay periods. And those highest usually do not line up with the calendar year or the fiscal year. I bet they occasionally do, but probably most of the time they don't. So what we do is, let's say that you're making the highest rate of pay at the end of your career. And let's also say that you are going to retire on April 1st. Okay. And let's say that you're in tier 2. So it's the 3-year final compensation period. Well, that means that your highest 78 consecutive biweekly pay periods end on April 1st. So your final compensation period is going to end on the April 1st where you retire, and it's going to go back in time 3 years on the calendar. Back to, let's say your retirement date is April 1st, so your termination date would be March 31st. So your final compensation period would probably be March 31st, 3 years prior to March. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm getting those dates exactly right, but it's something like that. You can see where I'm going with that. It's 3 calendar years that end with your retirement date and go back 3 years into the past. If you're tier 1, tier 4, if it's tier 1 and tier 3, it's 1 year. So that's how that works. Okay, so I'm not seeing any more questions about the vacation conversion, so we'll move on. Thank you all for bearing with me while I explained all the details of that. And thank you to the tier 3 and tier 4 members who that didn't apply to. Okay. And Let me talk briefly about limits on your monthly payments, your basically benefit limits. Okay, the first limit is that your retirement allowance cannot be more than your whatever we calculate your highest average monthly salary to be. So it's capped at 100% of your highest average monthly salary. And the basic idea there is to prevent you from making more money in retirement than you were making as a working employee. And that kind of makes sense. But as we just learned, um, your highest average monthly salary might be a little bit higher than what you were making as a working employee because of that, vacation compensation increase to the salary. So whatever your highest salary, average monthly salary is, including the vacation calculation, your retirement allowance is capped at that. And you may say, well, if I, that may sound like bad news, but that's actually good news because that means that you are achieving 100% salary replacement with your Acera pension alone. And so you will actually, if you are going to collect Social Security, if you're not a safety member, if you're a general member, you'll actually collect Social Security. And then if you have additional savings, you're actually going to be making more in retirement than you were making as a working person. Okay. Limits B and C, that's for people who have super high salaries. So I'm not going to spend any time on that, but I just wanted to point out to you that those exist. So if you do have higher salaries than that, go ahead and read about those limits on our website at acera.org/limits. Now, the tier 4 limit, um, that is for people in tier 4. And the way this works is that the state law that created tier 4, that took effect on January 1st, 2013, created this limit also. And what it says is that Acera is not allowed to include any more annual salary dollars in the calculation of your retirement than the Social Security wage index limit cap. Now, that's a number that goes up every year. But if you were to retire this year, for example, and you had a higher salary than this as a general member, $151,446, um, we would not be able to include any more annual salary dollars in the calculation of your retirement allowance than that. Okay. That's kind of the bad news. The good news is that what happened, the way it works is that when you hit that cap in the year, let's say you hit it in October and you've made this much money by, whatever pay period in October. For the rest of the year, we're not going to take any Acera retirement contributions out of your check until January 1st, and that will give you a little more money in your check to save in your 457B account. But there is a cap on that. Like I said, these numbers go up every year, and we always have that limit out on our website at acera.org/limits. Okay, I see a couple of questions that just popped up. First question, to make double sure, it may behoove a member to take the vacation that they can't be cashed out for because they will get no other credit, correct? Correct. Absolutely. If you were in this scenario where you earned 4 weeks of vacation, let me go back. 2 times your accrual rate is 8 and your limit is 9. And let's say that you had 9 on the books or 10 or 11, anything above 8, if you have more than anything above 8 on the books when you stop working, you're just going to lose it. So in any case, you're going to want to either take the vacation or sell the vacation back to your employer. Um, if you take the vacation, you can tack it onto the end of your career if your employer will let you do that. I'm not sure. I don't know if they can object to that, but and that's the way you can get more service credit for that, and that would push that in if you were on vacation the last week or so of your career, that would push your retirement date out by that week. But yeah, anything above 2 times your accrual rate, you're going to want to go ahead and sell or go ahead and take the vacation. Okay, and then there's a question, which option will give a better monthly allowance, vacation payout or using the vacation? Excellent question. Thanks for that question. Um, Vacation payout, get the vacation seller, the cash out will by far boost your retirement allowance way more. Like if you sold a week of vacation and got a week more of salary credit, that will increase your retirement allowance way more than if you used one more week of vacation and got and earned one more week of service credit. Because in that scenario, you're choosing between getting a week's worth of salary boost in the salary component or getting a week's worth of service credit boost in the service credit category. And the salary credit, if you sit down and do the math, the salary increase blows it out of the water, the service credit increase. Um, so you would definitely want to, whatever vacation that you can sell or get cashed out for up to your limit, you would just want to go ahead and do that. Okay, so now I will show you two ways to actually get an estimate of your specific retirement allowance that you are going to be able to expect when you retire. I'm going to show you two ways. I'll show you quickly how to get a kind of ballpark estimate. And one of the things that's nice about this is it gives you an idea of how much of your working salary you're replacing with your retirement allowance. Um, and Financial planners will tell you that you need 80% salary replacement. And it's not just from your Acera pension alone. That's a combination of your pensions, Social Security, and personal savings. But I always find it really interesting to see like what percentage of your salary you're replacing. And so we have some charts that help you do that. So what you're seeing here is a part of that retirement planning worksheet. And all you need to do is you think of your retirement scenario, how old you will be when you retire, and how many years of service credit you will have earned when you retire at that age. So in this example, this person is retiring at age 58 after earning 29 years of service credit. Then you come out to our website, acera.org, and you go under members and you go down to the third section here, the third selection, planning your future retirement income. And you go ahead and click that. And you scroll down, and this shows you four ways to get an Acera estimate. I'm showing you the first two. Open option number one and click on the button for your tier. So I'm going to click on tier 2A, just to use tier 2A as an example. And that is the general member tier 2. And you'll see that it opens up this ballpark salary replacement chart. And all you do is you find where your retirement scenario intersects. So I'll zoom in here a bit. So in this example, we were retiring at age 58 after 29 years of service credit. So I go over to 29 years of service credit, find it where it intersects with 58 years of age, and I see that I will be achieving 50%, 50.03% salary replacement just from my Acera pension alone, which is pretty good. And another interesting thing about this chart is you can see the effect of working an additional year more or additional year less just by going diagonally. So in another year, I'll be a year older and earn another year of service credit, and I'll achieve 54.50% salary replacement. But I'll just stick with the original scenario, 50%. And you can go back to your worksheet and you can just write that in on your worksheet. And then you can think about your current salary. You can just estimate it. Like I said, this is a ballpark estimate. Think about how much you make per month, and you can multiply it by the salary replacement percentage that you found on the chart. And then in this example, your retirement allowance would be about $3,000. That's one way to do it. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to get a precision estimate. This is the recommended way. All of you should go ahead and do this by going to the benefit estimating tool in your account on Acera's website. Okay, so on your worksheet, now you're going to think of your retirement scenario and you're going to get more specific. You're going to think about a plausible date that you will stop working and a projected date that you will retire. And if you're planning on going straight from active work into retirement, these will be 2 consecutive days. So you can't retire on your last day of work. It has to be at least the next day. Okay. And so you can put those in on the worksheet, or you can save it and Just plug them right into the benefit estimator. So what you're doing is you're going out to acera.org, click the login button. Log into your Acera account. Or the member portal is known as Web Member Services. The first thing you'll see is your account summary screen. It's always good to check all of this data that we have just to make sure it makes sense, that the numbers are correct. If they're not, go ahead and contact us so we can get that corrected. The years of service credit, there's usually a 2 to 4 week lag on that before the data gets put up into the portal. So if it's only about 2 to 4 weeks behind, then that's normal. Okay, so our goal here is to estimate your future retirement benefits. So I'm going to click on the estimate a benefit tool. You'll see that there is a field here for separation date and projected retirement date to plug those into. So you just go ahead and plug those in. I'm just zooming here on the screenshot so you can see it a little more clearly. And you hit calculate. And it will give you a projection of the amount of service credit that you will have earned in this scenario and the amount of your salary. It's giving you a salary projection based on your current salary. It's essentially based on the last payroll record from the last pay period it has on file for you. Okay, so you can put beneficiary info in here, and then you hit get estimate, and you end up with this retirement benefit estimate PDF. And it gives you an estimate of your, sorry, it gives you an estimate of your retirement allowance depending on which one of the four options that you are going to select. And we'll talk about that in the second half of the presentation. Okay, one thing that I want to do while we're on this topic is I want to help you if you want to see what the effect of having additional vacation in this estimate, like that additional vacation compensation, that increases your salary and that increases the retirement allowance estimate, I want to show you how to do that without overestimating. Okay, so there is a part of your worksheet um, that has this section here, which is how to calculate hours of cash vacation compensation for the online benefit estimator. If you want to see the effect of the vacation compensation on your retirement allowance, your projected retirement allowance. Okay, so what you're going to do here is you're going to plug in your limit from the other part of the worksheet into this first field. So let me go back to the worksheet and just show it to you with the whole worksheet because I think it's a little easier. Okay, so we're looking at page 2 of the worksheet and we're working in this section here. So in this section, if your limit was 9 weeks, you're going to plug in 9 weeks over here. Okay. And then you're going to multiply it by your weekly work hours. So if you work 40 hours a week, you do there, and then you would multiply that out and get your limit in hours there. Now let's say that your limit was 6. You work 40 hours a week, then your limit in hours would be 240 hours. So you're basically converting your limit in weeks to hours. Now you'll see it says AHS people start here. For AHS people, all you're going to do is you're going to take your limit from up here, whichever one of these fields is, and then you just transfer it down to here. So you don't have to do any more math because your limit is already in hours. Okay, so going back to the screenshots. So you do that on the worksheet, and then what you're going to do is do step 1, run an estimate, and leave the hours of cash vacation compensation field blank, okay? And you're going to end up with not really doing, I really should fix these screenshots so it's more clear. This field right here, you leave this blank on estimate number 1. Hit get estimate. You end up with your estimate. Okay, then estimate number 2, you're gonna, okay, hang on 1 second. I'm getting myself confused. Okay, you run estimate number 1. And when you look at estimate number 1, you'll see that there's not only this first page, but there are additional pages. And these are showing the pay periods that are all included that make up your final compensation period. And you're going to look in these two columns here, sold vacation hours and sold vacation compensation. And if you see anything in those columns, you are going to the sold vacation hours, you're gonna add up all those hours and put those here. So let's say that I saw one of these pay periods, I sold a week's worth of vacation. I sold 40 hours of vacation. Well, that would show up here. And so I would go ahead and plug that in here. And the whole purpose of this is to subtract out any vacation hours I already sold that are already the estimator is already including in my salary um, uh, estimate. So in this case, I would take the 40 hours I sold, subtract from the 240 hours of my limit, and that would give me 200 hours, and that's what I would plug into this field. Now, if you never sold any vacation or you didn't sell any vacation in the periods that is on that slide, then you could put the full 240. You could put up to your limit on here if you want to. But if you do have um, vacation that you've sold that's already being included in the estimate, you're going to want to subtract that out first. Okay, so on your estimate, just to zoom in here, this column represents your retirement, your member monthly benefit, basically your pension allowance, your retirement allowance. This is the estimated amount you're going to get paid every month for the rest of your life for the various options. Um, I'll tell you in just a few minutes how options 1, 2, and 3 work. For the moment, if you wanted to fill in on your worksheet, what the precision estimator found, you could fill that in here. It's not super necessary because really you could just take this thing, save it as a PDF, and that could be your record of what you found when you did the precision estimate. You can also print this out and stick it in a folder if you want. Okay, so let me check on some questions here. Okay, you're noting old addresses and phone numbers on your account when you log in. How do you change those? Good question. Let me look at that real fast. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to go to www.acera.org/address. And that's a shortcut, and it's going to take you to this page, name, address, and phone change. And if you're an active or a deferred member, assuming you are, if you're a retired member, it would be really strange for you to watch this, but I'm not going to judge. And for the name change, you're going to fill out our address name change form. Uh, if you're a deferred, it's called address name change because if you're a deferred member, you can change your address on there. If you're an active member, you can only change your name on there. And this is a DocuSign form, so you can do it all online. For the address change, if you're an active member, you need to update your address with your employer because whenever they send your records through, your payroll records through, the address field gets replaced by whatever they send over. Okay, next question. What happens if you sell your max vacation, which for you is 9 weeks, during your highest final compensation period of 3 years, but then that 3 years is in 4 fiscal years? Is the max that gets included in the final compensation still 9 weeks, or can it include time from my 4th fiscal year? Well, so the way the calculator is set up, like this is something that we've thought about and it's called straddling fiscal years, which is something that almost always happens. The way that the calculator is set up is it limits you to the equivalent of those 3 years. So the straddling doesn't matter. So whatever your limit is that you get from the calculator, that's what your limit is going to be. Um, and that's the way that our attorneys have interpreted the way the law is written. So you can just go by whatever that calculator gives you as the limit. And again, for tier two, when you are recording what your earned vacation amount is and vacation sell amount, it's whatever you were allowed to earn or sell at the end of each one of the 1 year periods in your 3 year final compensation period. Okay, follow-up question on the address change. It's actually the address of my beneficiary, and there's an old phone number attached to me. So I reach out. Okay, no, for your beneficiary in Acera, that's one of our forms. And so the shortcut for the beneficiary designation form is acera.org/BEN. And that will take you right to the beneficiary designation form, and you can fill that out. And while you're in there, while you're filling that out, you might want to go ahead and check the box for the advanced death benefit equity, um, advanced death equity benefit, which I'll talk about last in the presentation. But you should probably go ahead and check that box. You're welcome. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so I showed you how to get an estimate in a couple of ways yourself. You can send us a retirement benefit estimate request. It's one of the forms on our forms page, and we'll do it all for you. But there's a wait time because we get a lot of these requests, and our staff uses the same software that is in your account. So it's going to be the same benefit estimate. So I recommend just using the benefit estimator on the website because it takes 5 minutes and you get an instant result, and it's available 24/7 versus sending in the form, waiting a week and getting a week or 2 or 3, like however long those take, and getting the estimate in the mail. Okay, so that was a big topic. Understanding, how the pension formula works and getting a benefit estimate. Let's move on to the next topic, which is actually a very short one. Verifying your retirement eligibility. So we're talking about this milestone on the pension milestone chart, your first day that you are physically eligible to retire based on some combination of your years of service and age at retirement, or years of service and age. This is the first day that you can retire, but you don't have to retire on this day if you don't want to. Now, for tiers 1, 2, and 3, there's 3 different combinations that get you to retirement eligibility. I'll show you the tier 4 slide next. Option number 1 is you're at least age 50 and you have at least 5 years of service credit with Acera. And actually, you have at least 5 years of service credit, and it doesn't necessarily need to be with Acera. It could be with a reciprocal agency as well and add up to 5 years. And you have at least 10 years of membership. Now, these tiers closed over 10 years ago, so everyone already has 10 years of membership, so you don't have to worry about that. You're just over age 50, you have at least 5 years of service credit, and you can retire. Or option number 2 is that you can have 30 years of service credit and be a general member, or 20 years of service credit and be a safety member and retire at any age, even if it's younger than age 50. Or option number 3 is you can retire with any amount of service credit as long as you're at least age 70, even if you have less than 5 years of service credit. For tier 4, you have 2 different combinations. Option number 1 is you're at least 52 years of age as a general member, or at least 50 years of age as a safety member, and you have at least 5 years of service credit, and you can retire. Option number 2 is that you are at least age 70 and you can have any amount of service credit, even if it's less than the 5 years you need under option number 1. So that's how you're eligible to retire. So if you want to, on the worksheet, you can put in your retirement eligibility date. But if you already know that you're well eligible, you don't even have to worry about it. Okay, so let me tell you some things that you might want to know about choosing your retirement date if you haven't already chosen it. Or if you have chosen it, you might learn something that makes you want to adjust it a little bit. We're talking about this date right here, your first day of retirement, a date that you choose. What are the things that you're going to want to think about when choosing this day? Well, they're listed out here, 1 through 6, okay? So I'll just talk about each one of these individually. First off, first topic is, will you have enough income in retirement to pay for your life? So there's a way to figure that out if you want. If this is something that you want to think about, this is purely optional. You don't have to think about this, but it's a good idea. Um, so what you do is you get a Sarah retirement estimate. It's also a good time to log into your deferred compensation account if you have a 457B account and see what balance you have in there. It's also a good time to get an estimate from Social Security. You can use their online estimator at ssa.gov/estimator. And so what you're basically doing is looking at your three sources of income that you're gonna have in retirement. And as part of number two, you would also be looking at any other investments that you have. And then if you want to, you can think about post-retirement expenses, and you can basically look at your income that you can expect in retirement and see if it's enough to pay your expenses. A really shorthand way of doing this is just to see if the combination of all of your sources of income, retirement income, gets you to 80% of what you were making right before you retired. And if it does, that means that you will probably be able to maintain your standard of living in retirement. And if it doesn't, then maybe you want to consider reducing expenses or make some other considerations. So this is a purely optional topic. We do have an expanded article about this out on our website. If you go to the homepage, acera.org, and you scroll down to this berry colored section, ready to retire, um, there's this selection here, estimate your retirement income. And this is kind of an expanded article on what I'm talking about. It gives you the links to the Acera login to estimate your Acera pension, the Social Security estimator, tells you about Social Security eligibility. There's a link to the 457B account if you have one of those. And it helps you calculate whether you'll have enough income. And there's even a retirement calculator from AARP that we link to. That's like a free calculator you can use. And if you want to, there's a retirement budget worksheet here that you can try out. That's kind of like an extra credit thing that you might want to do. Okay, so that's the first item. The second thing that you may want to consider when choosing your retirement date are these age factor percentage dates. So if you recall from the earlier discussion we had about age factor percentages, they increase if you are still younger than the maximum age factor percentage for your tier, they are still increasing with every quarter that you age. So for example, if your birthday is January 15th, one quarter after your birthday is April 15th, two quarters is July 15th, three quarters is October 15th. And every time you pass one of these dates and you don't retire, you get a slightly higher age factor percentage. And so what that means is like let's say that you were going to retire you're younger than the maximum age factor percentage for your tier and you were going to retire on April 14th, okay? Or no, let's say what was my example? July 14th. Let's say you were thinking about retiring July 14th. Well, you can see that you wouldn't want to do that because if you retire on July 15th, you just wait a day, you get a higher age factor percentage. And it will actually increase your retirement allowance by somewhere between 1 and 1.9% just by getting that one age factor percentage increase just by waiting that one day. And it's the same is true with each one of these dates. So if you retire on or after that day, you get that higher age factor percentage. Um, and you can see what the maximum age factor, what the maximum age is for each tier. You know, for tiers 1 through 4 general, it's 62, 65, 55, and 67. And for the safety tiers, it's 50 for tiers 1 and tier 2B. Tier C, 2C, 2D, and 4, and tier 4 is 55, 55, and 57. So if you're younger than those ages, the age factor percentages are continuing to go up, and you're just going to want to think about these days. Now, what I'm not telling you to do is you have to get to the next day and get over that, get past that date to retire. Um, If you're gonna retire like halfway in between one of these dates, that's fine. You need to get out of here, you need to retire, just go. What I'm telling you is that it's probably not a great idea to retire right before one of these dates because you could just wait it out a little bit, a few days, another week, get over this, get past the next age factor percentage increase day, and you get a 1 to 1.9% increase to your retirement allowance at the time of retirement for the rest of your life. Okay, let me tell you about number three. The third thing that you may want to think about timing wise regarding choosing your retirement date is the cost of living adjustment and the cost of living adjustment date, which is April 1st. Well, and let me give you the full details about how the cost of living adjustment works while we're talking about this. So this is a vested benefit. The COLA stands for cost of living adjustment. It's an annual percentage increase to your retirement allowance. So you get it every year. It's based on the percentage increase of prices, the percentage increase of the Consumer Price Index in the San Francisco Bay Area as calculated by the Department of Labor. It's posted on April 1st for all members who are in retired status on April 1st. That means that if this is your first year of retirement, as long as your retirement date is on April 1st or before April 1st, when April 1st hits, you're going to get that increase. So if your retirement date is on April 1st, we're not only going to calculate your retirement allowance, but we're going to add the COLA increase to it immediately. Now, there's a limit on how much of an increase we can give you. So let's say that the inflation in the Bay Area from December to December, the way this is calculated, let's say it's 5%. Prices go up 5% from December to December. Well, when April 1st comes around, we're looking at 5% COLA, but we can't give you the full 5% now. We can only give you a maximum of 3% for tiers 1 and 3 or 2% for tiers 2 and 4. So then what do we do with the rest of the percentage points? Well, we save those in a COLA bank for you for later. And if inflation is less than the maximums in a future year, then we'll take percentage points out of your COLA bank and add it to your whatever the inflation was that year to get you up to the maximum for that year. The bottom line there is that if you've already been retired for a few years, people tend to accumulated some percentages in their COLA bank, and you just tend to get the maximum cost of living increase every single year, 2% or 3%. Okay, so regarding the April 1st date, because we're talking about choosing your retirement date, if you retire on April 1st, you're going to get the cost of living increase for that year immediately. If you retire on April 2nd, you are going to miss the cost of living increase for that year. But when next year's April 1st comes around, you're going to get that increase. And then every April 1st after that for the rest of your life, you're going to get whatever that increase is. So there's nothing that is like magic about April 1st that says you have to retire on April 1st or in March. It just so happens that of all the people who are retiring in the springtime, when you look at it, if you retire in March and you get that immediate cost of living increase on April 1st, it seems like a good deal because if you retire like April 2nd or for the rest of April, you actually made less money than you would have had you retired in March, which is why we have a lot of people retire in March and almost nobody retire in April. So that's just the way it works. But I mean, the rest of the year, you don't even really have to think about it. If you're going to retire in February, January, December, November, October, September, just retire whenever you want. And when April 1st comes around, you'll get the cost of living increase. Okay, sometimes the fourth thing that you may want to consider when choosing your retirement date is sometimes there's a dilemma between the age factor percentage increase and the cost of living increase. So let's stick with the January 15th birthday example. You're a general member, you're age 54, and I'm just saying this to say that you haven't yet reached the maximum age factor percentage for your tier. You already know you're going to retire in the spring. And you're thinking, what do I do? Should I retire on April 15th, which is 1 quarter after my birthday? And if I do that, I will get the age factor increase for getting past that April 15th date. But I'll miss the cost of living increase I would have gotten had I retired on or before April 1st. Or should I retire on or before April 1st, get the cost of living increase, but I'm going to miss the age factor increase I would have gotten in a couple of weeks had I retired on April 15th or after? Which one should I do? Well, I've already told you what the percentage increases are typically, so you probably already know the answer. But if the cost of living adjustment is the maximum for that year, which we know in early February each year, we post it out on our website about the first week of February. Um, if the cost of living adjustment is the maximum, you're going to probably want to go with the cost of living adjustment, which would give you a 2 or 3% increase versus the 1 to 1.9% increase you get from the age factor percentage. Now, you don't have to take my word for this. You can go to the benefit estimator and you can do two estimates. You can do one for your scenario retiring after April 1st. You can do one for your scenario retiring on April 1st. And in this scenario, it's not going to do the cost of living increase for you. You would want to multiply that estimate by the cost of living increase, whatever it is for that year. So if it's 2%, you would take your estimate, multiply it by 1.02, and then compare and see which one gives you more money and go with that one. Okay, let's see here. There's a question up on the board. Let me take that question as soon as I finish with this choosing your retirement date topic. No, the fifth thing that you may want to consider when choosing your retirement date is if your goal is to go straight from active work into retirement so that Acera will do the sick leave conversion for you, where you'll get extra credit, service credit, for your unused sick leave. What you're going to want to do is make sure that your termination date and your retirement date are on consecutive calendar days. So I'm showing you this calendar again. This is illustrating that this Friday was your last day on payroll, also known as your termination date or your last day in active employment. It's okay to be on leave during this day. Okay, you can be on vacation leave or sick leave or whatever. It's just that you're on payroll that day. This is the day that you write on your letter of resignation to your employer. And we do have a letter of resignation template out on our website that you can use. You can plug in that date. The next calendar day is your first day of retirement. This is the day that you write on your retirement application. So these two dates are consecutive. That means there's no gap between these dates, and we will do the sick leave conversion for you automatically. You don't even have to think about it. If there's any gap between these two dates, you lose all your sick leave. That's why I like to stress this. It's not a difficult thing to just put this date on your letter of resignation, this date on your retirement application. Okay. Now, when choosing which consecutive dates, you're going to want to think about one more thing, which is number 6. You're going to want to retire on a day after you're scheduled to work, and it should be a non-holiday. Okay. So your first day of retirement should be a day after you are normally scheduled to work. So for example, if your normal schedule, like a lot of people, is Monday through Friday, don't retire, don't have your first day of retirement that you write on your retirement application be a Sunday or a Monday, because the day before both of those days, you're not on the calendar to work. And that would cause you a gap and you would lose all your sick leave. Okay. So you just make sure that this day, your retirement date, the day before, you were on the calendar to work. Okay. That's one of your work days. Now, some of you may have an irregular, um, some of you may have an irregular schedule. Like you don't work Monday through Friday, especially if you work in law enforcement or healthcare. You might have a schedule and it might change, periodically. So what you may want to do is pick a retirement week. And then when it gets closer to the time and you see what the schedule is, then you complete your retirement application and fill out that date. And that way you know that your retirement date is the next calendar day after a day that you were scheduled to work. And like I said, it's okay to be on leave on that last day. Now, let's see, the day that you're supposed to be on schedule, that should not be a holiday. That should be a non-holiday because that question came up. Let me just verify that on our website because I know it's correct on the website. And I can't remember the reason for that, but my colleagues have told me that it's a problem if it's a holiday. Yes. So this day should not be a holiday. So this day, like for example, this you don't want to retire the Saturday after the Friday Thanksgiving day, because that will throw things off and could affect that sick leave conversion. Okay, and then there's a question, does a flex schedule account for that calculation? So when you're saying a flex schedule, you're talking about like when somebody works 4 10s. So you work 980. So it's like you have every other Friday off. Good question that I've never received before. Okay, my educated guess is that this would also apply. So on the Friday that you're scheduled to be off, that should probably not count as you being in, at work that day because you're not scheduled to work that day. That's my guess. But what I'm going to recommend is writing into our my colleagues and asking that question because I'm sorry I don't know the answer to that. So that would be at acera.org/contact, and they can help you answer that question. Very interesting question, and lots of people have those flex schedules, so I should learn the answer to that question. Okay, so let's see here. Um, does floating holiday or PLU count as on leave? Yep. So this day could be a floating holiday. This could be PLU, as long as it's not a holiday. That's totally fine. Yeah, you're on payroll that day because you're being paid one of your leave balances. Okay, so then there's a question going back to an earlier topic. Let's see here. Is there a cap for the cash out of vacation? You understand that for you, there's a cap for vacation of 360 hours per year used toward the calculation of the average monthly salary at the time of retirement. Well, there is a cap on how much vacation they will cash you out for, and that is 2 times your accrual rate of vacation and your annual accrual rate. So you don't want to have any more than 2 times your annual accrual rate of vacation on the books because everything above that um, will disappear. And anything above that you have on the books, when you go to retire, you're going to want to sell that prior to retirement, or you're going to want to take the vacation. Now, if you're talking about, so that's the cap that your employer has for cashing out vacation. Now, there's the other cap, which is how much of your vacation compensation will be included in yours for salary for calculating your retirement. And that was that whole earlier discussion that we were having. And you can use the calculator at acera.org/vacation to determine that. Or you could go back after this is over and you could rewatch that part of one of our previous videos because it'll take us about a week to post this. So if you wanted to rewatch that today, just go to acera.org/seminars, or just go to our homepage, scroll to the bottom, and there's a link to the pre-retirement webinar video. Sure. Okay, so the last part of the choosing your retirement date discussion is on your pension worksheet, your retirement planning worksheet if you want to. You can record your projected retirement date. And now that we know that if you're trying to go straight into retirement from active work, you just take your projected retirement date and subtract a day, as long as it's a day that you're on payroll and it's a non-holiday, and you write that in. Okay, making good time here. So let's see here. Let me tell you about the retirement application process. How do you actually retire? What steps do you have to take? Step one has kind of sub steps. Step one is that we want you to go through our preparing to retire section on our website because there's some things in there that apply to some of you that don't apply to some of you. And we want you to just go ahead and go through that. You can, the shortcut to it is acera.org/prepare. But from the home page, it's pretty easy to find. All you do is under members, you can go down to preparing to retire, or you can, in this berry colored section, it's right here, prepare to retire. And this has some steps on it, so we're going to want you to review each of these items, but you will find that you've already done a lot of this stuff because you're watching this webinar. So we've already verified your retirement eligibility, so you can skip that. If you don't want to consider purchasing service credit, you can skip that. We already had a whole explanation about how vacation pay affects your pension, so you can skip over that. Um, and this is the article on estimating your retirement income that I was showing you earlier. Attend a pre-retirement seminar. You've already done that. You're doing it as we speak. So you can see that you've already done a bunch of this stuff. And so just go through the rest of the few things, and that way you'll be fully prepared. Step number two, set up a ready to retire counseling session within the 3 to 6 month period before your retirement date, ideally. Now, if that time has already passed and you haven't set it up, it's not too late. You can still set one up in most cases, uh, as long as we have spots available. You can find that at acera.org/counseling, or you will find that on that preparing to retire page, that is the third to last step. Schedule a ready to retire counseling session. And you'll see that it's just a short web form that you fill out and you hit submit, and our staff will contact you after you fill it out to get that counseling appointment scheduled. And the appointment will be scheduled for the 3 month period prior to your retirement date. Step number three is submit a retirement application. And this is during that 90 days, that 3 month period before your retirement date. Okay. Now, once you set up the retirement counseling session, you'll be in contact with our staff. They'll give you additional instructions, but the full instructions and the retirement application, the electronic packet, is at acera.org/retire, which is, you'll see, the final step on the preparing to retire page. acera.org/retire. So you'll see there's a few steps on here that it just wants to make sure that you've already done them, okay? And it will take you through the five retirement allowance options. I'm about to explain those to you in just a minute. And then you'll see it, step four is it gives you the retirement packet. And you'll see that there's all these forms in here. This is a retirement packet. It's a DocuSign retirement application, so you do it all online. There's some other forms that you're going to want to fill out, like enrolling in our medical plan, medical dental vision, and so on and so forth. And those are mostly DocuSign forms that you can fill out. There's some additional information in there. Okay, so that is that step. Now, on that retirement application, you're going to be selecting one of the five retirement allowance options. You'll also be nominating your beneficiary or beneficiaries for death benefits, and um, that is a good time to consider joining a retiree association. And I think I have a slide on that. Yeah, the retiree associations, there's two of them. There's two associations of ACERA retirees. What they do is they advocate for retirees and they publish a newsletter and they hold social events. So one of them is Alameda County Retired Employees. They're affiliated with SEIU Local 1021. The dues are super cheap at $3 per month. REAC is Retired Employees of Alameda County. So you got ACRE and REAC. They're unaffiliated. The dues are super cheap at $2 per month, and you can join both if you want to. Many people do. So I just like to put in a little plug for those two organizations because we work really closely with them. They come to our retirees committee meetings. I go to all their board meetings. And so they just act as advocates for you, and then they hold those social events, and it's just another way to connect with the Sarah and just to like keep tabs on what's going on. So on your retirement application, there will be a checkbox for signing up for one or both of those, and so you can do that on your retirement application. Okay, so you are also going to be choosing your retirement date on your retirement application. So you are on your application choosing your retirement date and doing these three things. And there's a few other things to do there. Okay. Hit submit. We process it into our system. We log your retirement date. Once that retirement date passes, you're retired. You don't have to work anymore. It's going to be amazing. You're going to start collecting this retirement that you've been earning throughout your entire career, and you get to go do whatever you want. And we're just going to pay you every month for the rest of your life because you earned it by working for the public of Alameda County. So thank you for your service. Okay, so on your worksheet, now that we know that you should submit that ready to retire counseling form 3 to 6 months, but let's just say 6 months before your projected retirement date. All you do is take your projected retirement date, subtract 6 months, write a date in there, and then put that in your calendar as a reminder. Okay, there's a question. If you're not SEIU, should you still join ACRE? Absolutely. You can still join ACRE because, it's not really, it's, I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it's not like, you're a retiree, so you don't really, I mean, there's like no union negotiations that have to happen. But SEIU is affiliated with the union, and the union provides them a lot of resources. But yeah, you can absolutely still join, and many people do. Okay, so you can expect after you retire, once your retirement date passes, you can expect your first retirement check 4 to 6 weeks after your last employer's paycheck. Now, if there's any major issues with your file, what you can expect is you're going to start getting your Acera retirement check, yes, but it's going to be what we calculate to be like an 80% payment until we get these things resolved, and then we'll get you up to your 100% payments, and we will make any retro payments for any less than 100% payments that we had to make. This, in 99% of the cases these days, this does not happen because we ask you to start the process 3 to 6 months in advance by submitting that request to do the counseling session, and that gets the gears turning. And usually we get everything situated by your retirement date. Okay, next subtopic. This is an important one. I mean, they're all important, but this one is important because on your retirement application, you're going to choose one of these 5 options, the unmodified option and options 1 through 4. And this is your only opportunity to make this choice. Like you can't make a different choice later. You can't decide later to choose something different. It just doesn't work that way. So you have to it's good to be educated on what the choices do. And what these do is this determines what your retirement allowance is going to be and what your beneficiaries will receive after your death. There is one scenario which I will just mention as an aside where I believe that if you if you submit an application, a regular retirement application, also known as service retirement, And then you also submit a disability retirement application because you're permanently disabled and you cannot perform your job duties. So you want to go through the disability retirement process. What many people do is go through the regular retirement while they're waiting for the disability retirement process because that can take a long time. It can take like a year. And I think that if you're awarded the disability retirement, I do think you have the opportunity to change what your option is, I think. But you would want to check with our disability retirement staff on that. Okay, so you're going to choose one of these five options on your retirement application. And for each one of the five options, I'm going to show you one of these slides with a ton of text on it. Sorry for the wall of text, but I'll walk you through it, okay? The top of each one of the slides is the title of the option. The top of the table is going to tell you things about your retirement allowance as an Acera retiree. All of this bottom stuff is going to be about what your beneficiaries could possibly receive after your death if you were to choose this option. Okay, so the first option, the unmodified option, this is the one that the vast majority of people choose because it pays the maximum retirement allowance to you, the retiree. And the subtitle is 60% to beneficiary because what it does is it pays a 60% monthly continuance. And as we learned earlier, a continuance is simply a continuing monthly payment after your death. So you're getting your monthly retirement payment after your death. Your beneficiary would continue getting a monthly payment known as a continuance. And that continuance is going to be 60% of whatever your retirement was, whatever your retirement allowance was at the time of your death. And if it's a spouse, state registered domestic partner, or Alameda County domestic partner, it's a lifetime benefit. They would get it every month for the rest of their life. As long as you married them or registered them as a domestic partner at least 1 year prior to your retirement. If you didn't, you can't name them as a continuance beneficiary. Okay. And in the case that you are awarded a service-connected disability retirement, it's not a 60% continuance, it's a 100% continuance. Okay. Now, if you don't have a spouse or domestic partner, but you have a minor child or minor children, you can name them for the 60% continuance, but it's not a lifetime benefit. It's a temporary benefit. And it stops at age 18 unless they maintain enrollment as a full-time student in an accredited school and it can continue until age 22, unless they get married or they register a uh, domestic partner with the state and then it will cut off. Okay, so let's say that you don't have a spouse, domestic partner, or minor children, but you still want to select the unmodified option. Can you do that? Absolutely. You can absolutely do that, and many people do. Like I said, it pays the highest retirement allowance, and you can still name a beneficiary. But you cannot name a beneficiary for a continuance because you don't have one of these type of beneficiaries. You can name a beneficiary, but they would receive after your death a lump sum payment. It's a one-time payment in a lump sum. And what the payment would be basically be a refund of the balance of your employee contribution account with Acera. So we would give them back all the employee contributions that you made to Acera over your entire career, plus all the interest that we have paid on top of those employee contributions, minus all of the retirement allowance payments we've already made to you by the time of your death. One caveat here is that if you've already been retired, if you've already lived 3 to 5 years after your retirement date, we will have already paid out the entire balance of your contribution account to you in those retirement payments. So there would be no balance left over for a lump sum beneficiary. There would be some other lump sum payments that they would get. So it's still important to have a lump sum beneficiary named in that case. They would get a refund of any prepaid healthcare contributions that you made because you pay those a month in advance. They would get a partial month of your retirement allowance. They would get the $1,000 lump sum benefit, death benefit. And there might be something else in there that I'm forgetting. Um, so there would be some small amounts that they would be eligible for. Uh, so that's, you know, I'm not going to say that's bad news. That's just news. That's just how it works. But the good news, what that means, the implication of that means for everybody who chooses the unmodified option is that everything that you paid into the retirement system throughout your career, plus all the interest that you earned, we're going to give you back all that money in your first 3 to 5 years of retirement and everything after that for the rest of your life. It's almost like this magical bonus that you get paid, but really it's not because you deferred your wages. We use those to earn interest. Your employer also contributed. We use that to earn interest. And really, it's the interest that we've been earning on investing your money that pays for three-quarters of your lifetime retirement. So it really is all your money that we're paying back out to you throughout the course of your life. Okay, one more thing I want to point out about the unmodified option is that there are scenarios where at the time of retirement, you were married or you had a domestic partner, minor children, you named them for your continuance beneficiary. And you retire, but they die before you die. You can name in retirement a new beneficiary, but not for continuances, only for those lump sum payments. Um, so you would want to name a new beneficiary for the lump sum payments, but the only chance that you have to name a continuance beneficiary is at the time of retirement. Okay, moving to the next option. Option number one is subtitled lump sum to beneficiary because this is the only one of the 5 options that never pays a continuance to any beneficiary at any time. What this does is, as for your retirement allowance, this offers you slightly less money than if you had chosen the unmodified option. When you run the benefit estimate, I think you'll find that it's a little bit less. Okay. Might be like $5 or $10 or $12 or something like that. It all depends on your situation. And then what this does is it extends that time that there is a balance left in your employee contribution account from 3 to 5 years to 10 to 12 years. So it's still going to get exhausted at some point should you live in retirement past the first 10 to 12 years. But it does mean that if you were to die in that first 10 to 12 years, there would be a lump sum left for your beneficiary. So the employee contribution account gets exhausted a lot more slowly. So this is the choice that you may want to pick if you're interested in the unmodified option. You don't have a spouse, domestic partner, minor children, and you have somebody that you would want to leave the lump sum to and kind of like mitigate the risk of them not receiving a lump sum uh, and you would be taking a slightly lower retirement payment, but you would be increasing the chance that they would get paid out a lump sum. Okay, moving on to the next option, option two. Option two is subtitled 100% to beneficiary. So option two does 2 primary things. The first thing it does is, as you can see from the subtitle, it pays 100% monthly continuance to your beneficiary. So if you don't like the 60% that the unmodified option is paying out and you want to go up, you can choose option two and it will increase it to 100%. They would receive 100% of whatever you were receiving in your retirement allowance. And they would receive that every month for the rest of their life and after your death. The second primary thing that option number two does is it expands the group of people that you can name as a beneficiary for a lifetime continuance. You can name anyone. It doesn't have to be spouse, domestic partner, or minor children. It can be adult children or really one adult child. Options 2 and 3 let you name one person. And if you want to name more than one person for a continuance, that's going to be option 4, which I'll show you in a minute. Okay. So, just so you know, if you're trying to name anyone besides your spouse or domestic partner, they're going to need to sign away their right to that continuance because their right supersedes anyone else you designate. Um, Additionally, another thing that you should know is that your retirement allowance is going to be reduced from what it would have been had you chosen the unmodified option, and it's going to be reduced by some calculation that takes into account your beneficiary's life expectancy. If your beneficiary is older, their life expectancy is a little bit shorter, so we're going to expect them to pay them a little bit less, so you're going to get less of a reduction to your retirement allowance. If they're younger, they have a longer life expectancy, we're going to expect to pay them more. We're going to go ahead and reduce your retirement allowance based on the fact that we're going to have to pay them more. So you're going to see a steeper reduction to your retirement allowance than had you chosen the unmodified option. Um, and if that person that you're naming is not your spouse and they are more than 10 years younger than you, the IRS has this additional rule that we may not even be able to pay 100% monthly continuance. It might be something less, like 99% or 95% or 92% or something. We do have info out on our website that helps you calculate that if you're interested in that. And that is at acera.org/retire. If you go down to option 2, there's a link there. Okay, one more thing I want to say about this is that this 100% monthly continuance will happen if you retire and you die first and your beneficiary outlives you. If the opposite happens and they die before you do, again, you can name a new beneficiary, but not for a continuance. That is the same with all of the options. You only can name a continuance for a beneficiary at the time of retirement on your retirement application. Also, the reduction to your retirement allowance is calculated at the beginning. So we calculate your beneficiary's life expectancy. We reduce your retirement allowance a corresponding amount uh, at the beginning. And that's going to be your retirement allowance for the rest of your life plus cost of living increases. And if your beneficiary should die before you do, we're not going to increase your retirement allowance, even though they didn't live out what their actuarial life expectancy was. And again, you can name new beneficiaries, but only for lump sums. Moving on to the next option, option 3. Option 3 is the exact same as option 2 with one major difference, which is instead of leaving 100% continuance to a beneficiary, it leaves 50%. But it still allows you to name anyone as a beneficiary, including adult children or anyone else. And all the same rules apply. And because it's a 50% continuance, that IRS thing about the 10-year, the person being 10 years younger than you and not your spouse, that doesn't apply here. Okay, option number 4 gives you a lot of latitude to choose what your beneficiary would receive for their continuance. Okay, so you can specify a dollar amount or a percentage to one or more beneficiaries, and it doesn't have to conform to the 50% or 100% of options 2 and 3. Okay. Again, your beneficiary can be anyone. But let's say that you run the benefit estimate and you want to leave an amount to an adult child, and you run the benefit estimate and you look at option 2, which leaves 100%, and you see how much it reduces your retirement allowance, and you go, oh no, I can't live on that. You go to option 3 on the benefit estimate and you see that this pays more than option 2 because we're paying the beneficiary less, but still you can't live on that. Okay, so then you move on to option 4 and you think, okay, well, what else can I do? Well, you can really do anything. You could name them for 40% or 20% or 10% or 5%. So you can leave a continuance. You tell us what percent you want to leave them. You can even add people. You can have more than one beneficiary for a continuance. Like if you have two adult children, you could leave each one of them 10%, and that would total 20%, as long as it total of everyone you're leaving to isn't more than 100%. So you have a lot of different things that you can do with this. In any case, when you're leaving a continuance to someone, it has to be a human. It cannot be a charity, a trust, an estate, a pet. It has to be a human. But otherwise, for options two, three, and four, it can be any human. And for option four, it can be multiple humans. One more thing I'll say about this is that I do get people from time to time like who really want to leave a continuance to their adult children. Um, and that is a beautiful sentiment that you would like to leave them a secure payment after your death. Like it's a beautiful gift that you are considering giving them. Also consider that another nice gift, another amazing gift that you can give them is your financial solvency for the rest of your life. And that way they don't have to worry about taking care of you in retirement. So definitely weigh those things because in many cases, your adult children have many more earning years ahead of them and they can, work and pay for their own lives. So if you're considering options two, three, and four to leave a continuance to an adult child, just, keep that in mind. Make sure that you have enough money to live on. And just, remember there is inflation. I will show you later on that you can't lose more than 15% of your buying power because of one of our other benefits, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so that's options, that's unmodified options one through four. Now, those are the details in general. Specifically, if you want to get really specific, which is a good idea, you go back to the benefit estimator on the website, you log in, run your benefit estimate. When you get to this point down here, beneficiary information, sometimes you will open this drop down and you will see your family members in there and you'll see the beneficiary in there that you want to leave a continuance to. If you select them, go ahead and double check the birth date because if the birth date is wrong, some of them are wrong, it will throw off the calculations and you can just type the regular birth date in there. Now it's not going to update the file. You have to do that on the beneficiary designation form, but it will update it for the purposes of running the estimate. So you hit get estimate. Let me zoom in here. And so now that I've explained to you the different options, these, what this estimate is telling you might make a little more sense. And you might notice some things about it. You might notice that the unmodified option is the biggest number on here. It's the biggest retirement allowance estimate of all of the options. You'll notice that the beneficiary's continuance is 60% of the member's estimated retirement allowance for the unmodified option. Makes sense. You'll notice option number one, the beneficiary continuance is grayed out because it doesn't leave a continuance to a beneficiary. You'll notice for option number two, because it pays 100% of what you were getting paid, the numbers are the same. Your retirement allowance and your beneficiary's continuance is the same. And then you'll notice for option three, the beneficiary's continuance is half of what option three is estimated to be because it pays 50%. And you'll notice option three pays you more than option two because it pays the beneficiary less. You'll also notice there's no way to make estimates for option four because there's too many different permutations of what you can do that we have never programmed that in. I don't know if we have a good easy way of doing that. If you do want estimates for option four, whenever you set up that uh, ready to retire counseling session, go ahead and talk to your counselor about getting estimates for option four. Or otherwise, you can go ahead and contact us and we might be able to get you estimates for option four. Okay, so that was a big topic. The retirement application process. And as part of that, which one of the five options to select on your retirement application. Okay, so hopefully you have a good handle on those. Let's talk about other benefits. So Acera offers you the vested benefits that we are required to offer based on the state laws that created Acera and that govern Acera. And if you remember, the vested benefits that we've been talking about are the lifetime retirement allowance, the annual cost of living increase, that $1,000 lump sum death benefit. And then as part of the retirement allowance, kind of the sub benefits are those death benefits that we just got through talking about. Also, the opportunity to apply for disability retirement should you become permanently disabled and you can no longer perform your job duties. That's also part of that. Um, so I've told you a lot about the guaranteed benefits. Let me talk to you about these extra benefits, these non-guaranteed benefits that we also offer. Sometime back in the 80s, the county decided that Acera retirees, the retirees of the county, needed to have this extra source of income to help pay for the cost of being having to pay for health care and perhaps other benefits in their retirement. So they started this reserve fund that Acera now administers called the Supplemental Retiree Benefits Reserve. And it's our board of retirement that is in charge of this fund. And they're the ones that decide what the benefits are, these extra benefits, and who gets to partake in the benefits. And their entire way of deciding this is to maintain the sustainability of that reserve fund so they can continue offering these benefits in the future. So basically the bottom line is we're running this reserve fund and the board gets to decide who benefits from that reserve fund, who gets to pay, who gets to use money from that to pay for like healthcare and other benefits. And the board does that in order to maintain the sustainability of the fund. So they have decided that they are offering a medical subsidy, dental subsidy, vision subsidy, Medicare subsidy, and a supplemental cost of living adjustment. And these are the list of benefits that are paid out of that reserve fund and offered to Acera retirees as long as they meet the eligibility requirements. The eligibility requirements are also set up to maintain the sustainability of the reserve fund. So you'll note that their requirements are based on years of Acera service credit to qualify for them. And so what that means is that if you are a member who has reciprocity with another fund, your reciprocal service credit does not count for making you eligible for these. This is Acera service credit only. And you'll see that for most of the benefits, the bottom amount of service credit that gets you the base amount to qualify is 10 years of Acera service credit. If once you achieve 10 years of Acera service credit, you're eligible for the Medicare subsidy, the vision subsidy, dental subsidy, and the first level of the monthly medical allowance, which is the name of the medical subsidy. And if you do achieve 15 or 20 years of service credit, you get higher levels of the medical subsidy, the monthly medical allowance. The supplemental cost of living adjustment is the only one that everyone gets to qualify for, but you'll see in a moment that um, what it takes to qualify for it is losing a certain percentage of your buying power in retirement. So let me tell you about each one of these in some more detail. I'll show you the healthcare plans, talk about some costs, and that'll give you a better idea of what kind of healthcare benefits to expect in retirement. Should you want to seek healthcare, enroll in one or more of Acera's healthcare plans, and if you're eligible for these subsidies to pay for the cost of those. Let's talk first about the monthly medical allowance. The monthly medical allowance is, again, a non-guaranteed benefit. I don't think I properly emphasized that. These are all non-guaranteed, right? These are extra benefits. As long as there's funds in that reserve fund, the board will continue offering these. And they try to make sure that there's money in the fund. Currently, there's over $1 billion in there. and the sustainability measure they use is pretty high. So it's a pretty healthy fund as of now. So the monthly medical allowance, it's not guaranteed. None of these benefits that I just talked about are guaranteed benefits. Um, what it's designed to do, the monthly medical allowance, is for you to enroll in one of Acera's medical plans, and it offsets the cost of those medical plans only, no outside plans. So you can go if you want to get an outside plan, but you don't get the monthly medical allowance to help pay for it. We're going to have two choices for you. We have some group plans that we contract with the carriers to provide, and the monthly medical allowance will cover the premiums, the monthly cost of being enrolled in those plans. We also have some individual plan options, and in that case, the monthly medical allowance will pay for premiums, copays, and deductibles. The amount of the monthly medical allowance is set annually by Acera's Board of Retirement. And in fact, the amount of these subsidies is one of the major handles that the board uses to keep the fund sustainable. So they review this every year. They have our actuary do two projections per year of the sustainability of the fund. So they're constantly monitoring this, and they set the levels of these benefits every single year. You, the retiree, is responsible for any costs exceeding the amount of the monthly medical allowance. So that means if the premiums are higher than what the monthly medical allowance pays, you have to pay the difference. Also, the allowance is not available for other people like beneficiaries, survivors, former spouses, dependents, plus ones. You can enroll them in our coverages as long as your Acera check is more than the premium amount. But the subsidies do not pay for any of their care, any of their coverage. Here are the monthly medical allowance amounts for 2024. For 20 or more years of service credit, you are eligible for the full monthly medical allowance, which is currently $635.37 per month. 15 to 19 years of service credit, you're eligible for the three-quarter amount, which is $476.53. 10 to 14 years, you're eligible for half of the monthly medical allowance amount, which is $317.69. Okay. So kind of look at the amount that you might be eligible for and think about that. And I'm going to show you the plans and the premiums in just a minute. Okay. And then there's a question. Does the MMA cover premiums, copays, and deductibles for dental and vision? No, because this is the medical subsidy. The dental subsidy and the vision subsidy are going to be entirely separate benefits that we offer, so you would get more money than this to pay for those over there. But thanks for that question. Okay, so what you're looking at here is a list of the plan options that we have for our medical plans, and it's divided into two columns here. Over here, we have non-Medicare eligible plans. And so if you're familiar with Medicare, or maybe if you're not, Medicare is the federal government's healthcare system, basically. Like once you're age 65, you can enroll in Medicare, and the federal government provides you a lot of care, pays for a lot of your medical care. Um, so if you're not yet Medicare eligible, you would be picking among these plans. And you can see that there's Kaiser Permanente and United Healthcare Group plans, and then individual plans through Via Benefits. If you are Medicare eligible, the Medicare plans, what they do is they work in concert with Medicare. So Medicare provides a lot of the coverage, and these are like extra plans that get you a higher level of coverage than Medicare alone. And we have a group plan from Kaiser and then individual plans through Via Benefits. So what I'll do is I'll show you I'll show you the premiums for the plans. For the non-Medicare plans first, then I'll show you the premiums for the Medicare Kaiser plan, and then I'll talk about the individual plans through Via Benefits all at the same time because it's way more efficient. In general, our open enrollment is the month of November each year. That's the retiree open enrollment. So we have a longer open enrollment than the county does, And then for a few of the categories, it's even longer than that. Well, we have a chart of that in our materials. Okay, so let me tell you about the non-Medicare group plans first. Oh, and first off, before I tell you about any of the plans, I'm not going to show you that many details. The full details of the plans are in our enrollment guide. So that is at acera.org/guide. It's a PDF of the print guide that we print every year and send you in your open enrollment packet that you will receive every October as a retiree. There's a question that popped up about the Kaiser plans. Do they offer the ability to go to a naturopathic doctor or chiropractor? I think off the top of my head, there might be some chiropractic coverage. Let me look at the list real fast. Um, I'm not seeing that. In our guide, there are more details, but it's not the full details of everything it covers. So my recommendation would be to contact my colleagues and ask that. Naturopathic doctor, my wild guess is that they would not because, as you probably know, Kaiser only you can only see the Kaiser, doctors on staff. And I bet that they don't have any naturopathic doctors, but I could be wrong. So I would go to acera.org/contact and my colleagues will probably be able to answer that. Okay, so you were wondering if the MMA could be used as reimbursement? No. For the group plans, the only reimbursement you get is for the premiums. So you're not for the group plans, you're not submitting reimbursement claims back to anyone, back to Acera or the plans themselves because it only pays for the premiums. Um, so if there's naturopathic or chiropractic coverage built in the plan, then you would be able to receive that, but you wouldn't be able to use the MMA dollars for those, because that's not really how the MMA works for the group plans. It doesn't cover copays for the group plans, but the copays are cheap. So I think it's $15 for the non-Medicare plan and $10 for the Medicare plan for both primary care and for specialists. So they're pretty rich plans, those group plans. And for Via benefits, let me talk about that in just a minute. Yeah, but copays will be able to be reimbursable. Okay, so what you're looking at is a slide that has non-Medicare group plan costs. So these are the premiums if you were to enroll in one of these three group plans that we offer. That are non-Medicare plans if you're younger than 65. So you have to live in the California service areas, which is the Bay Area, Fresno, Sacramento, Southern California, and for Kaiser, I think they have Santa Cruz, and it's based on your zip code. So if you live in the service area, then you would be choosing among these plans. You'll see that the self premium for the signature value HMO through United Healthcare is the cheapest. It's about 8% less than the Kaiser plan. And you can enroll self plus one and family members. The copays are $15. And then you'll also notice that these are the same plans the county offers if you work for the county, and that's because they negotiate these non-Medicare group plans for us, so they're the exact same plans. And you're probably also familiar with the fact that if you stick to the high performing network for the signature value advantage, it's like way cheaper, 35% cheaper than the signature value plan. Um, Okay, so that's if you live in the group plan service areas and you're not Medicare eligible. Now, regarding the monthly medical allowance, the way this works is that let's say that you enroll in one of these plans. Let's say that you enroll in the Kaiser Permanente HMO. So your premium per month will cost you $1,037.76. So this is a very crude illustration of your Acera check stub for your retirement allowance. So let's say that your gross retirement allowance is $4,000 per month. In the deductions column, you would see the amount for the Kaiser HMO come out. That's how we do with the group plans. We take it out of your check, we send it to Kaiser as a convenience to you. Then, if you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance, you would see the monthly medical allowance go back in the additions column, and you end up paying the difference. So this is the 20-year monthly medical allowance. So you also note that the premiums for these plans are high enough where even the 20-year monthly medical allowance does not cover the full cost of the plan. Okay. And so you end up paying the difference. And one thing that like to mention is that none of the subsidies are taxable income. So this monthly medical allowance amount, this is not taxable income. We have a letter from the IRS where we are doing it in such a way where it's not taxable income. So that is how the MMA is applied for the group plans, and that's how the premiums are deducted for the group plans. Okay, so let me show you the Medicare plan. So if you're Medicare eligible, 65 and older, and you enroll in the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan. So what you do first is you enroll in Medicare, Medicare Parts A and B, and you also have to live in the service areas for California, and those are the ones I just mentioned. So you can enroll in this plan. And you'll note that the premium amount is way cheaper than the non-Medicare plans because the government, the federal government, is paying for most of the cost. So what I'm illustrating here is I've made an additional line that is for if you have the 20-year monthly medical allowance. And I'm showing you what the premium is for each one of these categories. I'm subtracting out the monthly medical allowance amount and showing you what your out-of-pocket cost would be. Now you'll probably notice that here I'm showing you a $354.31 monthly medical allowance, but that wasn't one of the numbers I showed you in the chart. 354.47 or whatever it was. And that's because the board's rule, the way they have this set up is that the monthly medical allowance only pays up to the self premium. So you don't get to keep the change. What it does mean is that if you have at least 15 years of Acera service credit and you enroll in the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage plan, it costs you zero out of pocket. So you get the benefit of Medicare and you get a higher level of coverage from Kaiser Permanente, and it costs you zero. All you have to do is pay the $10 copays when you go in to see your primary care physician or a specialist. So it's a pretty rich plan. And then you can see the different amounts, the premiums and out-of-pocket costs for the rest of the categories. Let's see here. There's a question. Do you lose the MMA benefit if you retire and move out of state? Nope. You can still use it. We have out-of-state plan options, and I'll show you that when I talk about VIA benefits. And then there's another question. Okay. So your spouse is an Acera retiree, and they worked for 20 years, and they are on your health insurance coverage at the moment while you're still working for Alameda County. Okay, so when you go to retire, you plan to take the self plus one plus family coverage, and that is because of self plus spouse plus a minor child. And then how will their monthly allowance work? Can it be used to contribute toward your monthly medical allowance covered as self plus one plus family? You're both under 65. Okay, so you're not going to want to do self plus one plus family, okay? Because your spouse has 20 years of service credit. They are going to be eligible for their own monthly medical allowance. So what you should do, and it sounds like, let me see. I don't think you specify which monthly medical. Are you gonna have a monthly medical allowance, and which level of monthly medical allowance will it be? Well, okay, so you're both going to have the 20-year monthly medical allowance. You're going to want to enroll separately. If you enroll together, you can only use one monthly medical allowance. If you enroll separately, you can use both because you both have over 20 years of service. So one of you will enroll in this one of the self plans. Of you will enroll in one of the self plus one plans to include your minor child, and you'll both get the 20-year monthly medical allowance to pay for the cost of that. Uh, and it will pay the self premium is way higher than the 20-year monthly medical allowance, so you'll get the full, you'll get probably over $1,200 per month. So that will be a good situation. You are welcome. Okay, so those are the group plans. We have the non-Medicare group plans, we have the Medicare group plan. Then the question becomes, what about if you live out of state, like you were asking in the Q&A? Or what are the other options? What about these via benefit individual plans? Tell me about that. Okay, so first off, let's answer the question, who can enroll in a via benefits individual plan? Well, if you're under 65, if you're not yet Medicare eligible, you can enroll in a via benefits individual plan as long as you live inside the US, but outside the Acera group plan service areas. So I mentioned that the service areas were the Bay Area, Sacramento, Fresno, Southern California, and for Kaiser, um, you have Santa Cruz. So if you live in one of those areas, you have to choose the plan options that based on you being enrolled in those areas. If you live outside, like if you move up to Redding or you move over to Nevada, you still can get medical coverage through Acera through a via benefits individual plan. Okay. Now, if you're Medicare eligible, it's slightly different. All you need to do is live anywhere in the US. And it's okay if you live in the Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage Plan group area. You can still choose between that plan and a via benefits individual plan. All you need to do is first enroll in Medicare Parts A and B. Okay. But anywhere in the US, you can choose an individual via benefits plan. You can live in San Leandro and choose an individual via benefits plan if you're Medicare eligible. Okay, so what is via benefits? Via Benefits is an independent private health insurance exchange that we contract with. They're basically like a giant insurance broker. And we hire them to connect you with these individual plans because they have contracts with 100 plus insurance carriers. Um, so what you do when you go to enroll in one of their plans is you call them, or you can do it online also, but if you do call them, you will talk to a certified salaried non-commissioned benefit advisor. And why I say that is because they don't get a kickback by putting you in one carrier versus another. They just get a salary from Via Benefits, okay? Um, and they're certified to do that. So what they do is they have 1,000, probably more than 1,000 plans. And what they do is you tell them when you contact them what you need, what your situation is. You tell them where you live or where you're going to live. You tell them what level of coverage you're looking for. You tell them how much you want to spend, whether you want to have a deductible or not. You could even get as granular as what doctors you want to visit and what prescription drugs you need to pay for. And they plug that in their software. They narrow their 1,000 plans down to a few plans, and you pick among those, and they'll send you more information on those. Um, and the monthly medical allowance works a little bit differently if you sign up for one of these individual plans, whether you're non-Medicare eligible or Medicare eligible. It not only pays for premiums, but it can also pay for deductibles, co-pays, and other IRS-approved medical expenses. Okay, so the way the monthly medical allowance works with via benefits, I should really improve this slide at some point so it's not just like these crude boxes representing different people. But for now, we'll have to stick with what we have. this box is representing a Sarah. Okay. And so let's say that you're eligible for the monthly medical allowance. So we have your monthly medical allowance dollars right here. And you enroll in a plan through Via Benefits. Well, we're not going to pay you your monthly medical allowance dollars into your retirement check. It doesn't work that way for the Via Benefits plans. We are instead going to send your monthly medical allowance dollars over to Via Benefits, and they will deposit it in this HRA, this health reimbursement account for you. And those monthly medical allowance dollars are going to sit there and wait for you. Okay, so you are going to enroll in a Via Benefits plan. They are going to connect you directly with an insurance company and have you enroll in that insurance company. Okay. So you're going to then pay that insurance company directly out of your bank account, the monthly premiums that you will owe them for being enrolled in their plan. Okay. You're out some money. You're also going to probably visit the doctor because you have insurance and you can go to the doctor. So you're going to pay the doctor a copay when you go visit them. You're out some more money. So what you do is you submit reimbursement claims back to Via Benefits, and they'll pay you your monthly medical allowance dollars back to your bank account. When you talk to them, they'll set all this stuff up to happen electronically, and they'll set you up with recurring payments to your insurance company, recurring automatic reimbursements to your bank account, and then you would just be responsible for submitting reimbursement claims for expenses back to them. And they have software and an app that helps you do that. Okay, so I hope that answers your question about Via Benefits copays and reimbursement that you had asked. Now, one more thing I want to say about Via Benefits before I move on is that the monthly medical allowance, if you are enrolled in Medicare, like if you're Medicare eligible and you enroll in a Via Benefits individual plan, what we have found is that those plans are so inexpensive that Um, what the board decided is in order to maintain the sustainability of the reserve fund, they reduced the monthly medical allowance amounts by a little bit for those individual plans, the individual Medicare plans. And so there's a different set of monthly medical allowance amounts. But what they do is they measure it every year. They study it every year to make sure that for the vast majority of people, this amount covers the full cost of their medical coverage. And what we find is that if you're in the 20 or more years of service category, 90% of the people, this amount per month covers like all of your medical expenses, the premiums, copays, and deductibles. Okay. Oh, you're welcome. So that's the medical plans and the medical subsidies. Let me talk about the dental plans and dental subsidies. So we offer dental coverage through Delta Dental. We have two different plans, Delta Dental PPO and Delta Care USA. Um, if you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit when you retire, or you retire with a service-connected disability retirement and you have less than 10 years, you must choose one of these plans and enroll in one of these plans, but it doesn't, excuse me, it doesn't cost you anything. The self premium and the subsidy amount are the same. So let's say that you have at least 10 years of a service credit and you enroll in the Delta Dental PPO. When you look at your Acera pay stub, you'll see $51.05 come out of your Acera check. In the deductions column, you'll see $51.05 go back into your check in the additions column. And we will pay your premium to Delta Dental for you as a convenience to you. There's the difference between these plans. I think the benefits are a little bit richer in the PPO. Uh, Also, the PPO is nationwide. The Delta Care USA is in California only. And you can enroll your family member, Self Plus One and family, but there's no subsidy for them again. So you pay the difference. If you enrolled Self Plus One, you'd see 9902 come out of your check and 5105 go back into your check. Now, if you retire with less than 10 years of Acera service credit, you can still enroll in a dental plan, but there's a different set of premiums and there's no subsidy. Okay, there's a question. How can I learn what other IRS medical expenses are that can be reimbursed with a monthly medical allowance using VIA benefits? So this is actually a new topic. We don't have info out on our website about this yet because this is something that we recently discovered. Previously, we were saying only premiums, deductibles, and copays. Um, but then I think that it is uh like additional expenses. I'm gonna go ahead and send you my email address. Um, maybe you can send me an email asking that question, and I can look into that for you and get back to you on that because it is something that we're gonna need to post on our website pretty soon. Okay, next question. Does this adjust as your children age? So let's see. I actually don't know what the rule is for dental and vision. I think it's the same as what's in the Affordable Care Act. I know for the medical plans, you can have your children enrolled through the age of 26. Um, I don't know. Gene, are you there? Do you happen to know just off the top of your head?
I don't happen to know off the top of my head. I'm sorry about that, Mike.
Okay, no worries. I thought you're that it's not your area of expertise, but I thought like you might have looked that up at some point.
Gotcha. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so I think like my wild guess is that it's probably cuts off at 26 also. But I know for the medical plans, you can continue to have your children enrolled through age 26. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure about the dental and vision. So definitely give us contact us at sarah.org/contact to ask that question. So when you retire, you're saying when you retire, two of your three children will be under 26. Yeah, you can enroll them in the plan under family. Yep. Okay, and then there's a question, is the fee for the spouse 9902, not 99 minus 51? Well, it depends. If you have at least 10 years of a Sarah service credit, um, and you're eligible for the subsidy, it is 9902 minus 5105 because you get the subsidy. So it will be whatever the difference is between those two. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I guess that's not real clear. I'll have to think of a way to make that more clear on the slide. Okay, so then the question after when you retire as they age, they'll drop off. Yeah, you can't maintain them in your plan after age 26, I think. Pretty sure that's how it works. I that's I'm gonna say that that's my educated guess, but yeah, you may want to ask my colleagues at acera.org/contact just to make sure. But yeah, I don't think you can continue covering them after age 26. You're welcome. Okay, vision plans. Very similar to the dental plans. If you have at least 10 years of Acera service credit, you have to participate in the VSP standard plan at least, but it costs you zero. The self premium and the subsidy are the same. And self plus one, again, it's 673 minus 463 would be the cost out of pocket to you. And then you can buy up into the VSP premium plan. There's a few differences. You can read about that in our guide, acera.org/guide. One of the differences I know off the top of my head is with the premium plan, you get frames every 12 months. In the standard plan, you get frames every 24 months. And again, if you have less than 10 years of service credit, you can enroll, but there's no subsidy. Okay, we got two more non-guaranteed benefits to cover. Number one, or number four, is the Medicare Part B reimbursement plan. So when you become Medicare eligible in retirement, we mandate that you transition from our non-Medicare plans to our Medicare plans. And as in the process of doing that, you are going to, if you want to continue receiving healthcare coverage through Acera, medical coverage, you're going to want to enroll in Medicare. And so you enroll at that point when you turn 65, and really you have a 7-month enrollment window, 3 months before your 65th birthday month, your 65th birthday month, and the 3 months after. To enroll in Medicare, Medicare Part A is hospitalization coverage. Part B is doctor's visits. Part D, as in Delta, is prescription drug coverage. And so you enroll in Medicare, and then the federal government is going to start charging you for being enrolled in Medicare Part B. There's a cost. Medicare Part A is free if you have paid into Medicare, the Medicare system, at least, I think it's for at least 10 years or the equivalent of 10 years. You will receive Medicare Part A for free. If you haven't done that, you can still enroll in Medicare Part A. There's just going to be a cost. And then the cost for 2024 that Medicare is going to start charging you is $174.70 per month. Now, what the Board of Retirement has done is they've created this subsidy, the Medicare Part B reimbursement plan, to cover the base level cost of being enrolled in Medicare Part B, which is $174.70 per month. Now, if you have a higher income, Medicare will charge you more, but the subsidy is only at whatever the lowest level is. So that's how the board has set it up, which for 2024 is 174.70. But the cutoff, the next highest income level is actually pretty high. So I think the vast majority of people will just get, this reimbursement will cover their whole Medicare Part B premium cost. All you need to do is have at least 10 years of a SARA service credit or a service-connected disability. You got to enroll in Medicare Part B and maintain your enrollment, and you got to submit a form one time, Medicare Part B reimbursement plan form. And then we will put you into this plan. You'll see 174.70 show up in your SARA check, and you'll just stay in it as long as you maintain enrollment in Medicare Part B, and you don't have to think about it. You'll just keep getting it. When you become Medicare eligible in retirement, we will send you a letter in the mail, and we will tell you some things that you should do. One of them is going to be to go through our Medicare section of our website at acera.org/Medicare. And it will give you step-by-step details on how to apply for Medicare. It will remind you to enroll in this Medicare Part B reimbursement plan, and it will give you the form. And you can submit the form at that time. If you're already 65 and you're still working, you should not enroll in Medicare Part B yet because it will come with a cost. Unless you don't have health care through your employer, then you might want to do that. But I've never heard of anyone in that scenario. But if you already have health care in your employer, you don't want to enroll in Medicare Part B yet. Wait until you retire. And then at the point that you retire, then I think your counselor will talk about the Medicare plans and you enrolling in the Medicare Part B reimbursement plan. Okay, fifth and final non-guaranteed benefit, the supplemental cost of living adjustment. This keeps you at 85% of your original buying power that you enjoyed at the time that you retired. So you can never lose more than 15 percentage points to inflation. At the point that you lose more than 15 percentage points to inflation, supplemental cost of living adjustment kicks in and keeps you at 85% of your original buying power for the rest of your retirement. So it's a really powerful benefit, and that's why it's the second most popular benefit that we offer after the medical plan. And it's nothing you have to think about. It kicks in automatically. Okay, the final thing that I will talk about is this final slide, which is just a kind of a catch-all on the stuff that I didn't have time to talk about, or stuff that doesn't apply to everyone. First off, deferring retirement, which is like quitting your job before you retire. Deferring retirement is where you stop working for your employer and you don't retire immediately. You defer your retirement to a later date. Now, when that happens, you become what we call a deferred member. You're not an active member. You're not a retired member. You're a deferred member. Your membership in ACERA is still good. You're still an ACERA member. You're just kind of on hold. You're not paying into the retirement system. You're not earning more credit toward retirement. And you can retire out of deferred status later. And sometimes people will do that because they quit before they're the retirement age. They quit before age 50 or 52, and they're not eligible to retire yet, and then they just have to wait until they achieve that age to retire. If you're gonna stop working and not retire yet, there are some things that you want to know about doing that. And so I recommend going out to our webpage, acera.org/deferred, and reading that section. Okay, second off, we have we talked about the death benefits that you all are eligible for, your beneficiaries are eligible for, if you die after retirement. We did not talk at all about the death benefits that are eligible for your beneficiaries should you die before you retire. You can read all about those on our death benefits page, acera.org/death. The thing that I want to point out the most is this brand new thing that you can do. It's called the Advance Death Benefit Election. We sent out an email about this to everyone in April, and we suggested that every active member, go ahead and do this. Doesn't apply to deferred members, just active members. And what this does is it increases the amount of benefits to the maximum level that we can provide to your beneficiaries. And it also allows people other than spouse, domestic partner, and minor children to receive a lifetime continuance. That's a really powerful benefit. There's no downside. Everyone should make this election. All you need to do is fill out the beneficiary designation form one more time at acera.org/BEN. It'll take you right to the PDF. Download the PDF, type, fill it out, type it, print it out, sign it, send it in to us. Make sure when you fill it out, you check the box for advanced death benefit election. And then once you do that, you will have made that election. Okay, so divorce or domestic partnership dissolution. California is a community property state, which means that the retirement that you earned while you were married or in a state registered domestic partnership is considered community property, and that is up for division whenever you're dividing assets at the time of a divorce or a domestic partnership dissolution. Now, there's different ways to negotiate it. Some people are able to negotiate other assets away and keep their retirement for themselves. Often that's not the case. And your ex-spouse or domestic partner wants to take part of your retirement with them. There's more information about that on our divorce page, acera.org/divorce. If you get divorced in retirement, there's information about that too. In that case, we wouldn't split the account, but we might, if it was negotiated where they, kept some of your retirement, we would split the check and they would start getting their own check. Disability retirement, I mentioned this. If you're interested in that topic, we have a whole page on our website, acera.org/disability. We have a team at Acera that helps people through that process. So there's more info about that. And this is if you ever become permanently disabled and you can no longer perform your job duties, then you would want to be looking at disability retirement. Okay, last two items, working after retirement. If you retire from Acera and you go to work anywhere else that is not one of Acera's 6 participating employers, we don't care. You go do what you like. And we're just going to consider you an Acera retiree, and we're going to pay you your lifetime monthly retirement benefit that you earned. Now, if you want to come back to work for one of those 6 participating employers, there are rules around that. There are restrictions and there are limits. So you're going to want to check that out at acera.org/working. Okay, relocating after retirement, just once you retire, if you change your address, go to acera.org, submit our address change form. It's a DocuSign form. You don't have to print it out or anything. You just do it all online. That helps us continue to send you your official correspondence that we need to send you, and also our annual report, and most importantly, our open enrollment package. And then signing up for Acera email news. This actually no longer applies because we're just going to sign you up automatically, and you can opt out of it once you receive the first email. Unsubscribe. And then if you have more questions, Always feel free to contact us at acera.org/contact. There's an email contact form or call us. We have a call center, 510-628-3000. Their entire job is to answer your questions about your retirement benefits. That's their entire job. They just sit around waiting for you to call and ask questions about your retirement benefits. I'm exaggerating, but that's what their job is. So, on behalf of the Sarah Board of Retirement and Sarah staff, we wish you a beautiful retirement. So thanks for learning about your benefits and spending this time with me while I tell you about them. Okay, so at this point, we are going to shift over to the deferred compensation 457B presentation. I see you there, Gene. Go ahead and feel free to share your screen. Thanks for being here and welcome.
Thank
Um,
you.
there was one question that popped up. Let me answer
Okay.
that question real fast while you're getting settled. Has it
Okay.
happened before that the 85% guarantee has to be invoked? Oh yeah. Yeah. So inflation tends to be above 3% in the United States on average if you look at the history. If you annualize it over, the recent, I don't know, 50 or 100 years, it tends to be a little over 3%. And if you recall, our cost of living increase will only pay 2% to tier 2 and 4 and 3% to tiers 1 and 3 maximum. What that means is that your buying power will eventually erode to the point where you do hit that where you've lost 15 percentage points, and that's when the supplemental cost of living adjustment will kick in. And for tier 2 and 4 people, it kicks in sooner because uh, their vested COLA is a lot less. And I was just going to look up real quick, like who's currently getting those supplemental COLA amounts. So tier 2 people, if they retired on or before April 1st, 2007, all of them are getting that supplemental COLA because of that loss of buying power, but it is keeping them at 85% of their original buying power. For tier 1, it goes all the way back to 1982 if they retired before 1982, because their vested cost of living increase keeps up a little bit more. So I hope that answers your question. Oh, you're welcome. Absolutely. So at this point, I think you all are going to want to, oops, oh, there we go. At this point, I think you all are going to want to watch this presentation from our resident expert, Gene Hilliard. He has been hired by Alameda County to do this education for you. You all have access to 457B accounts to save extra money toward retirement. As government employees, if you don't work for the county, 99% of this info is going to apply to you anyway, so I highly recommend sticking around. And after his presentation, which will go to maybe about 1 o'clock, um, we'll both hang out and answer any questions that we didn't get to yet. All right, so take it away, Gene.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mike. Appreciate it. Let's go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Gene Hilliard. I'm Vice President, Financial Advisor of Emerge Financial Group. We're a financial services company in Oakland. We help our clients with financial planning. We do taxes, accounting for small businesses. As Mike mentioned, I was hired roughly 15 years ago by, at the time, Prudential Retirement, now Empower, to provide retirement planning investment guidance and education to county employees. Okay. A little bit about my background. I've been a licensed stockbroker slash financial consultant for roughly 20 years, helping my clients create wealth, maintain that wealth throughout their lifetime of their kids and grandkids. And I'm also a retirement counselor. And my goal as a retirement counselor is to help each one of you maintain your current lifestyle in retirement. Okay. What does that mean? Well, the exact same paycheck that you're getting today, my hope is for you to get that exact same paycheck in the future when you retire. Okay. Now, I'm sure many of you are 3 to 5 years away from retirement, or maybe even closer. And we felt it appropriate to kind of give presentations to give you some thoughts about retirement readiness. So I'm going to spend roughly 30 minutes kind of diving through or going through some information with respect to retirement readiness. So let's go ahead and get started and let's find out how ready are you? Okay. These are some of the factors, determining factors that you want to consider when you're thinking about or considering or wondering if you're retirement ready, right? Factors are Social Security, your pension, retirement plans, your income, your healthcare costs, and I think most importantly, your emotional readiness. Okay. And I'm going to spend a little time there. Okay. Taking a closer look at your retirement readiness, on the left-hand side of your screen, you have what are considered big picture items, right? Just like I mentioned, retirement income, right? Social Security, your retirement budget, the psychological effects. And those are big pictures. But then you sometimes want to dive into the details. What are the details? What are your investment principles? How are you going to invest your money? What are your withdrawal strategies, right? It's very important that you be responsible, be thoughtful about your money, and don't spend down your money too quickly. Taxes, inflation, where do you want to live? Long-term care, estate planning. Those are the intimate details with respect to retirement readiness, retirement planning that you want to consider. Okay, let's talk a little bit about income. Where will your income come from, right? Most of your guaranteed retirement income, if you're Social Security eligible and you've paid into Social Security, will come from Social Security. Uh, Other areas of income will be your pension through Acera. So hopefully each one of you have logged on to acera.org, created a user ID and password, played with the calculator online to kind of see roughly how much you should anticipate or expect in retirement. Some of you have invested in, for example, real estate, and you anticipate living off the rents from your real estate. So you're going to get some income there. Some of you may decide that you want to work a little bit in retirement, which I'm all for. I mean, it's unacceptable to me if you have to work to make ends meet, but working a little bit, 20 hours here or there or what have you, to kind of keep your mind sharp, put some extra money in your pocket, keep you busy, I'm all for that. Okay. Do you have enough money to retire? That is a very, very important question. And these are some of the questions you want to ask yourself to determine if you have enough money to retire. One of the big one is, are you in a position to stop working? Okay. What are my expenses? What are my expenses going to look like in retirement? Right. How and where do you want to live? So you want to ask yourself those questions, answer those questions to get a feel for if you truly have enough money to retire. Some of you may say, well, I probably don't have enough money to retire. But if you have some time on your side, maybe a few years to put money away, the IRS will allow you to put money into deferred comp. If you're 50 and under, you can put away 23,000. If you're 50 and over, the IRS will allow you to put away 30,500 a year. It's probably going to go up next year, but I would encourage you to take advantage of that. And if you have some extra, even more money to put away towards retirement, the IRS will allow you to put away 6,500 in an IRA. That would be outside of the county. And if you're 50 and over, you can put away an additional $1,000. These are the maximums. Okay. And if you really are serious about retirement and maybe you have some money sitting on the sideline in the credit union, maybe not earning a lot in terms of interest, you may even consider taking advantage of the last 3-year special catch up. You can put away $46,000 a year for 3 years prior to retirement. Okay. So now, unfortunately, you can't just write a check, say, here, Gene, here's 46 grand, put it in my deferred comp. Doesn't work that way. Money has to come out of your paycheck. So what you could do is say, all right, Gene, I want you to take half my paycheck. And then we can put that into deferred comp, hopefully to get you to that 46. And obviously here you're short paying your bills. You can just go to that savings account to pay your bills. So that's a way you can indirectly get money on the outside into your deferred comp account. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, you have your deferred comp, your others guaranteed income stream would be Social Security, right? And I'm going to talk briefly about Social Security. I'm not going to take a whole lot of time, but if you had questions, you can log on to ssa.gov to get more information, or at a minimum, create a user ID and password so you can see roughly how much you're going to get at 62, 67, and at 70. But here's Social Security. If you collect it early at 62, there's a partial benefit. You're not going to get your full benefit. It's probably going to be about 30% less. To get a full benefit, if you were born before 1960, the age is 66, but it's probably going to be 66 in 2 months or 3 months, depending on where your birth date falls. If you were born in 1960 or later, full retirement is 67. And in some cases, you may even want to consider collecting Social Security at age 70 to get the most bang for your buck. Okay. So here's roughly how much you can anticipate receiving from Social Security full benefit at various income levels. 25,000, 1218. If you make 142.8 and above, you're looking at 3,338. So obviously here it's clear, if you're living in California, there's no way you're going to be able to live off of just Social Security. Okay. So that's why your ACERA and your deferred comp is really, really going to help you retire comfortably. Okay. Many people ask me, all right, when should I collect Social Security? At 62, 66, 67, or age 70? And to get the most bang for your buck, it's really about life expectancy, which is something we don't know. If, for example, your parents and grandparents lived well into their late 80s, 90s, when you do the math, collecting it at age 70 makes the most sense. If, for example, you're having some health issues, you don't see yourself living past 78 or 70, 75, somewhere in there, or even in your 60s, then when you do the math, it's better to collect it at age 62. But I'd say for the most part, everyone falls in the middle. The sweet spot is the middle, collecting your Social Security at age 66 or 67. But here's kind of an example. If you were to live until you were 80 to get the most bang for your buck, collect it at full retirement, 66, 67. Or if you live to make it to 85, then age 70 is your best course of action. And obviously 90, age 70. But I will tell you this, sometimes all money is not good money. Wouldn't it be ashamed if you were waiting until age 70 and you didn't make it, so you didn't enjoy your money? So I've kind of changed my tune a little bit with COVID, people passing away prematurely. I would encourage, take Social Security as soon as you can, especially if you need the money to retire. But have a conversation with me, your spouse, domestic partner, significant other, talk to your attorney, give their take. But you can also, like I said, you can schedule an appointment with me and we can talk through your personal situation. Okay. Social Security with your pension. I'm sure many of you are assuming that because you work for a government agency, your Social Security is going to be cut. Not necessarily. If you're a sheriff deputy, you're a safety officer, those folks don't pay into Social Security, so your Social Security probably will be affected. But if you work for Alameda County and you're paying into Social Security, then you don't have to worry about this windfall elimination provision. It does not apply to you. It only applies to you if at some point in your career you had a position that paid into Social Security. But if you log into Social Security, ssa.gov, the information will be there and they will let you know truly what your Social Security benefit will be in retirement. Let's talk a little bit about budgeting. Budgeting is also extremely important when you're thinking about retirement or you're getting close to retirement. These are the benefits of a retirement budget. You prioritize your future spending. Okay. It may, in fact, help your retirement savings last longer. You're able to dissect or confirm your needs and wants. Okay. So here's a foundation. I encourage you, create a budget today, right, with your fixed and variable expenses, and really try to isolate your needs and your wants. Once you've gone through that process with your current budget, try to envision what retirement will look like. What will your budget look like in retirement? Will your house be paid off in retirement? Okay. Um, the education that you're paying for one of your kids, maybe grad school or whatever, is that going to be out of the way? Right. So get a feel for truly what your lifestyle, what your budget will look like in retirement. Okay. That's extremely important. I know a lot of folks these days, they don't even create a budget even currently while they're working. They just kind of get paid, pay their bills, pay whatever's due, and then keep it moving. But it's extremely important in retirement that you recognize there is no overtime. You're on a fixed income. So you have to truly be thoughtful and be responsible for the money that you're bringing in and going out. Here are some additional retirement expenses that you may have thought about, but if you haven't, I would encourage you to start thinking about it. Relocation. Are you renting somewhere in the Bay Area? Right? Uh, is it possible that whomever you're renting from may sell their home? And if that's the case, where are you going to go? There may be some relocation costs that you might want to consider. If you own your own home, when was the last time you replaced your roof? That could be on the horizon in retirement. Okay. Caring for aging parents, that's a big one these days. A lot of folks, especially in my generation, I'm 56. Many of my peers that I've gone to school with, all of our parents are late 70s, 80s, right? You may need to care for your aging parent, right? Is there some remodeling that needs to go on um, to accommodate your parents? Those are some things you want to think about and you want to consider as you're creating your retirement budget. Okay. Emotional transition to retirement. What does it look like? Okay. These are typically the 5 stages of a retirement transition. You're growing interest. Right now, you're in that period of you're interested in retirement. Initial euphoria. You're able to kind of come and go as you please. You got all these plans for taking vacations, etc. You'll then move into some stress. Can I truly afford these vacations? Right? You'll adjust once you've determined, okay, this everything's going to be all right. You adjust and then you settle down. Here are some psychological effects that you might want to be aware of. Some common feelings that you experience in retirement: loss of identity, right? You've spent your 40, 50 years, your working career, your passion, your purpose has been work, right? That's going to go away. Are you able to replace that with something? Procrastination, that's another big one. If there's no reason for you to get up, why get out of that bed to take care of whatever it is that you're supposed to take care of that day? Maybe I can do it tomorrow. So you procrastinate, you know. Loneliness. Some of you have peers, have friends, etc., that are still working, yet you're retired. So there's some loneliness that may kick in that we need to come up with a way to resolve. And then obviously the death anxiety. You're on the other side, and you know that you're not invincible. You know that death is close and it is near, so that anxiety will creep into your psyche. So you want to, I would strongly encourage getting some therapy, talking to friends, to deal with that before it comes, because it is coming. Okay. How do you resolve many of those emotional needs? Uh, get a hobby, play some golf, uh, be a crossing guard at your local elementary school. Being around kids is a big one. that really gives you a boost. Um, and it's really helpful again for your psyche. Part-time work is, like I said before, I encourage that. Work 20 hours a week or 10 hours a week doing something that you love. Hopefully you won't have to do whatever that part-time job is to make ends meet, but it's something that you can do for fun. Sports and activities, social engagements are a big one. I would strongly also encourage mentorship. There are a lot of kids out there that lack the parental um, help or guidance. So I would encourage being a mentor to some kids, right? To help them fill that void and to be successful in the future. And it also helps you by allowing you the opportunity to give back. So these are some things where that you can participate in to fulfill your emotional needs. Okay. So let's say hypothetically you have a $500,000. You have $1 million in deferred comp. You're you got Social Security covered. You have your Sarah covered. Maybe you're short in terms of paying your bills. So what is the withdrawal strategy from your deferred comp or any other retirement plans? Now, these are some factors that you can't control. Longevity. You don't know truly how long you're going to live, but it's possible that you need this money to last 35 years. Investment returns. Am I going to earn 3%, 6%, 10%? Those are a moving target. Inflation. We don't know how much your PG&E bill may go up or your water bill may go up or cable, right? So you want to consider that and future expenses. Maybe you hadn't thought about replacing the roof, didn't even cross your mind, and all of a sudden, boom, it needs to be replaced. So those are some things you really can't control. Okay. But here are a couple of withdrawal strategies that I want you to consider. This is called the constant dollar amount withdrawal strategies. This is where you're pretty much saying, I'm going to take out a fixed amount per year divided by 12, and I'm going to increase it by 3% to keep up with inflation. And you're going to continue to do that until your money runs out. So that's the fixed or constant dollar amount withdrawal strategy. You also have the constant percentage amount withdrawal strategy. This is a strategy that I prefer. This is where you basically say, I'm going to take out 4 to 5% of my account per year. And that's it. Now, when you use this withdrawal strategy, in many cases, it ignores inflation and it ignores market performance. But I'm fairly confident that if you keep your money invested, right? Don't go run and hide in stable value because you retired. If you keep some money in stable value, keep some money invested. If you were to decide to take out 4 to 5%, and if your rate of return on your account on average is 6%, there's that possibility you can keep your principal intact. You're taking out 4%, you're getting a 6% return on your money. So you're keeping the difference, right? So, but if you were to, for example, well, unfortunately, a lot of people are doing, they're saying, Gene, I'm retired. I keep hearing that once you retire, you should put everything into stable value. Stable value pays 2% a year, right? So if you're pulling out 4%, but you're only earning 2%, then clearly when you do the math, you have the potential of your money running out much faster. So if you need some assistance, need some help in terms of figuring out what your withdrawal strategy should be, let us know. Here's another withdrawal strategy that some people use. There are IRS tables that are used that kind of get a feel for uh, how much their required minimum distribution tables. And it kind of gives you a feel for, in the government's experience, how long people are living and how much they should take out of their accounts per year. So you can use the required minimum distribution approach, you can use the constant dollar approach, or you can use the percent of your account approach. Okay. Capital preservation. This is a strategy where, for example, you decide you want to keep money in stable value. Stable value pays 2%. You're saying, I'm going to only take out 2%. Right? So that's the capital preservation approach. You're only taking out what your rate of return is per year. So if you have an investment that earns 5%, right? That's guaranteed. You just take out 5% every year. So that's the capital preservation approach. That's the approach where a person is thinking to themselves, I want to leave a legacy. I'm going to leave my principal intact. I'm just going to take out the interest. Okay. Taxes on retirement income. Many of you, especially if you receive a pension, your Social Security, no, I'm sorry. Let's back up. We're talking about taxes on your distributions from deferred comp. Okay. So if you've invested pre-tax into deferred comp, you know that whatever you take out is going to be considered earned income, and it's going to be taxed at whatever rate your income is. So if you're in a 28% tax bracket, figure you're going to have to pay 28% on your distributions from deferred comp that are considered pre-tax. Now, I'm not a tax person. I doubt you'll be in a 28% tax bracket in retirement because your income is going to drop significantly, but you get the idea. Whatever is taken out of deferred comp pre-tax is taxed as ordinary income. Now, for those of you who are now participating or has participated in the Roth version of deferred comp, if you're 59 and a half, the account's been open for 5 years, there are no taxes on your disbursements. You already paid the taxes going in. And through the Roth provision, again, provided you're 59 and a half, the account's been open for 5 years, then your disbursements from the Roth version of deferred comp is tax-free. Here's where what I was talking about before, Social Security. Many of you, your Social Security is going to be taxed because your ACERA income, you're going to receive ACERA income. So here's some examples of if you're an individual and, for example, you're bringing in $25,000 to $34,000 a year, up to 50% of your Social Security could be taxed. And if you have a joint return, combined, your income exceeds $44,000, up to 85% of your Social Security could be taxed. But again, I'm not a tax person, and I'm really not a Social Security expert, but this is a tax question. Reach out to your CPA, your tax advisor, et cetera, to get their opinion in terms of how much, if any, of your Social Security will be taxed. Okay. Inflation, I touched on inflation a little bit earlier. You want to consider your fixed expenses, your variable expenses. Here's real life examples of a gallon of milk in 1980 versus a gallon of milk today, and a new car back in the 80s and today. So as you can clearly see here, inflation is real. I'd say over the past roughly 10 years, inflation has been pretty subdued. But we had an inflation problem maybe about a year and a half ago, and the Fed had to do some things, raise rates to get inflation in check, which has worked. But on average, if you want to plan for inflation, inflation is typically 2.5%, 3% a year. So just every year, just consider, all right, I think my cable, my PG&E, whatever, it's going to increase by 2.5% next year. I need to prepare for that. And if it doesn't happen, then great. You have a little bit more money in your pocket. Okay. Where do you anticipate living? These are some of the things that you want to consider when you're thinking about relocating. It's more than just the weather. Cost of living, healthcare, state taxes, distance from your family. Are you okay with your family being in California and you moving, I don't know, to Georgia because it's cost of living is a little bit lower. So those are some things you want to consider. Here are the states that have the best tax rates: Delaware, Hawaii, Wyoming, DC, Nevada. Here are the states with the lowest cost of living: Mississippi, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri. Healthcare important to you? Here are some states where you can get the best healthcare: Minnesota, North Dakota, Massachusetts, California, Nebraska. Okay. So where you live really doesn't, where you live really is based upon what's important to you. So you don't want to wait until you're retired to kind of ask yourself these questions. It's important that you get ahead of it, right? A year, maybe even two prior to retirement. Determine what's important to you and then make a decision with respect to whether or not it makes sense for you to move into a new state or a different state. Planning for long-term care, that's a tough one there because long-term care insurance is so expensive. But these are, if you do have long-term care, or if you don't, these are some things you want to consider: bathing, dressing, housework, grocery store. Um, Here are some different services in the long-term care realm: homemaker services, adult daycare, assisted living facility, nursing home. Okay. And this is how much it costs. It can be very, very pricey. I have a client whose mother lived in a nursing home out in the Vallejo area. And she was shocked, and I was shocked that she's paying 10 grand a month, $120,000 a year to take care of her mother. So the question is, do you have that amount in deferred comp? Do you have kids who have that sort of income to be able to take care of you? So considering long-term care insurance is maybe appropriate, but it's very, very expensive. If you do decide at this stage of your life that you want to consider long-term care, let's talk about it. Because right now I think long-term care is $700 to $1,000 a month, right? And this is insurance. You're putting all this money into this policy that you may or may not even use. So it might be appropriate to self-insure, meaning put money aside into an investment account, have that grow over time. And if you happen to need long-term care, you have a bucket of money that you can use for that. And if you don't need it, hey, that's extra money that you'll be able to utilize in retirement. The role of Medicare, Medicaid, I'm not going to spend any time on that. I won't do it any justice, but I would strongly encourage you guys to participate in the Medicare, Medicaid presentation offered by Acera. It's very thorough. So you're going through this, but I would encourage at some point in time, when you get close to Medicare age, which is 65, sit through that seminar. Okay. Let's touch on estate planning. Estate planning is very important. You don't have to be rich to create an estate plan, right? But it's important, especially if you own a home in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's a nice, I'm sure it's a nice home. It's a very expensive home, and you want to protect it as best you can. A will is not going to cut it. I know when I was growing up, if you had a will, everything was covered, but with a will, you still have to go through probate. Probate is the process where your beneficiaries have to hire an attorney to divvy up your money, or to even these people, your beneficiaries, have to prove that they're truly beneficiaries. Or you can have people, family members that can come out of the woodworks to say, well, Jane was going to give me X amount of dollars, right? Which may or may not be true. So estate planning is extremely important, but you want to determine your beneficiaries, your heirs, your family members. Are you going to give some money to some friends, charitable institutions, right? Within the estate planning process, there are end-of-life medical care that you want to consider. Are you a grandparent taking care of your grandchild? If something were to happen to you, who's going to be responsible for taking care of that child? So you want to have guardianship in place for your children. Okay. These are different components of an estate plan. We talked about a will. Trust is extremely important. The other thing that's extremely important is you want to find someone to become your successor trustee, someone that is that you trust, that is going to carry out whatever wishes that you have with respect to your estate plan and your trust. Okay. So what's next? Taking a deeper dive, I encourage Acera.org. Play with the calculator. Frequently asked question is a great tool for you to use. If you ever have any questions, you can obviously reach out to Mike for that. Social Security website, ssa.gov. It's important to log on there, create a user ID and password. With Social Security, remember, they take a look at 35 years of work history. So you want to confirm that Social Security Administration has all 35 years and that there's no errors there. Okay, so that's another big reason why logging on to ssa.gov is extremely important. The other tidbit I'd bring up to you guys is um, estimating your ACERA benefit. Yeah, we went into that. So here's the website, acera.org, estimate your retirement income, and then you're off and running there. The other thing I wanted to bring up, which I thought this was the slide, is if you, for example, worked as a TAP employee, or you left the county to care for your child, right? And there's some time that you can buy back, right? There's some time that you can buy back. Did you know you can use your deferred comp to buy that time back, right? So say there's 2 years that you missed out on that you can buy back. So I may have Mike give some more detail. He may have already gone through that, but you could go to ACERA. They will give you an estimate of how much it's going to cost you to buy that time back. And if you have it in deferred comp, then you can just transfer that money over. That will increase your retirement service credit and therefore probably increase your payout. So that's something that you may want to consider. People ask me all the time, is it worth it, Gene, to take money out of deferred comp to buy back that time? And I always say, absolutely. And the reason why I say that is your ACERA benefit is guaranteed for the rest of your life. That's a built-in rate of return, guaranteed. Deferred comp can fluctuate. So why not take some risk off the table, add that to ACERA to increase your benefit. There are 3 investment advisors here to help you. There's Mark Tomei on the left. There's Jason Brummett on the right, myself in the middle. We're here and willing and able to assist you through this retirement planning journey. Just reach out to us. Doesn't cost you anything extra. This is the number that you want to call to reach out to us. That's 855-969-4572. Hit option 3, and you can schedule an appointment over the phone. If you're interested, you can log online and schedule a phone appointment or a virtual appointment through AlamedaCountyDCP.com. Okay. Empower is the company that I'm pretty much representing. I was hired by. If you haven't created a user ID and password for the Empower site, I would encourage you to do so. It's a pretty simple process. Should take you just a couple of minutes so you can at least view what your rate of return is, how much money you have in deferred comp. The other thing I would encourage is to use their retirement income calculator. And if you need some help navigating that retirement income calculator, it's a great tool so you can kind of see if you're truly ready to retire or how close you happen to be. Okay. So with that, I'd love to entertain some questions.